Good afternoon and welcome to today's proceedings. To you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. The broadcast is available on Senate TV as well as KBC Channel 1 and on YouTube. My name is Edward Kabasa. We'll take a look at the order of business this afternoon, where the Senate Majority Leader will lay on the table of the Senate the report of the ad hoc committee of the Nakuru County Executive on the application for conferment of city status to Nakuru Municipality. The Chairperson Sessional Committee on County Public Accounts and Investment will lay on the table of the Senate report of that committee on the financial operations of Kiambu, Busia, Kwale, Tana River, Trans Nzoia, Nyandarua, Migori, Kisumu, Samburu, Kericho, Bomet, Bungoma, Garissa, Isiolo, Kitui, Lamu, Makueni, Mandera, Marsabit, Meru, Mombasa, Nyamira, Taita, Taveta, Uasin Gishu, Vihiga, and Wajir County Executives for the financial year 2013-2014. The Chairperson Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights will lay on the table of the Senate some papers, and these papers are reports of that committee on its consideration of various bills, among them the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 40 of 2018, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 2 of 2019, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 16 of 2019, and the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill number 3 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 35 of 2019, as well as the Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 13 of 2018. The Chairperson Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare will also lay on the table of the Senate the report of the Standing Committee on its consideration of the Care and Protection of Child Parents Bill, Senate Bills number 11 of 2019. The Chairperson Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation will lay on the table of the Senate the report of the committee on its initiated inquiries on projects undertaken by Kenya Maritime Authority, Kenya Ferry Services, and National Social Security Fund. Also in the order of business this afternoon, the nominated Senator Victor Prengei, will seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on the delay in payment to officers who conducted the National Identity and Integrated Management System registration exercise. And pursuant to Standing Order 51, subsection 1B, the Chairperson Standing Committee on National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity and Regional Integration will issue a statement relating to the activities of the committee. Other chairpersons who will also issue statements relating to activities of their committee include the Chairperson Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations, the Chairperson Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation, the Chairperson Standing Committee on Tourism, Trade and Industrialization, the Chairperson Sessional Committee on County Public Accounts and Investment, and the Chairperson Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation. And pursuant to Standing Order 52, subsection 1, the Senate Majority Leader will issue a statement on the business of the Senate for the week commencing Tuesday, 26th November 2019. Other businesses lined up in the Senate this afternoon is the resumption of debate on a motion by the Senator for Mombasa County, Senator Mohamed Faki, on the report of the 64th Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference. The Senator for West Pokot County, Senator Samuel Pogisho, will also move a motion this afternoon, and it's on the report of the third statutory meeting of the Committee on Economic Development, Regional Integration and Natural Resources of the Forum of Parliaments of the International Conference of the Great Lakes Region, otherwise known as FPICGLR. That motion will be moved this afternoon. Also in the order of business is a motion by Senator Abdullahi Ali on the reports of the 6th Ordinary Session of the 4th Pan-African Parliament and the first ordinary session of the 5th Parliament of the Pan-African Parliament. Senator Abdullahi Ali also has another motion in the order of business this afternoon, and it's on the report of the Parliament of Kenya delegation to the United Nations Conference on Climate Change, or also known as COP24. The Chairperson, Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources, will move a motion on the report of the 8th World Water Conference that the Senate notes the report of the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources on the 8th World Water Conference held in Brasilia, Brazil from 18th to 23rd March 2018. The Chairperson, Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources will also move another motion on the report of the 14th Annual General Meeting of the Intergovernmental Forum on Mining, Minerals, Metals and Sustainable Development on Modern Mining Law and Policy. The Chairperson of the Land and Environment as well as Natural Resources also has another motion in the order of business this afternoon, and it's on the report of the 18th meeting of the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, CITES Conference of Parties, COP18. If you're just joining us, we're waiting for the House to convene its sitting this afternoon, and we are taking a look at the order of business this afternoon. And the other business appearing as order number 15 is a motion by the Chairperson, Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare. The motion is on the report of the 12th session of the Conference of Parties to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. There's an activity at the door, and I will now hand you over for the live proceedings of the Senate. The Senate Speaker, Kenneth Makelo Lusaka, has taken a bow. My name is Edward Kabasa. Enjoy your viewing.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come and our deliberations in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Chair, Sessional Committee on County Public Accounts and Investment. It's not there. Senator Omatangi.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, Thursday, the 21st of November, 2019. Mr. Speaker, report of the Sessional Committee on County Public Accounts and Investments on the financial operations of Kiambu County, Busia, Kwale, Tana River, Trans Nzoia, Nyandarua, Migori, Kisumu, Samburu, Kericho, Bomet, Bungoma, Garissa, Isiolo, Kitui, Lamu, Makueni, Mandera, Marsabit, Mombasa, Nyamira, Taita Taveta, Uasin Gishu, Vihiga, and Wajir County Executives for the financial year 2013-2014. Mr. Speaker, I beg to table.
Chair, Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, Tuesday, 21st November 2019. Report of the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights on its consideration of the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 40 of 2018. Report of the Senate Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs, Human Rights on its consideration of the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 2 of 2019. Report of the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights on its consideration of the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 16 of 2019. 4. Report of the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs, Human Rights on its consideration of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment number 3, National Assembly Bills number 35 of 2019. Report of the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights on its consideration of the Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendment Bill number 2, Bill National Assembly Bills number 13 of 2018. Chairperson, Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs, Human Rights. I beg to lay.
Chairperson, Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Thursday, 21st November 2019. The report of the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare on its consideration of the Care and Protection of Child Parents Bill, Senate Bills number 11 of 2019. Thank you.
Chair, Committee on Roads and Transport.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Thursday, 21st November 2019. Report of the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and its initiated inquiries on projects undertaken by Kenya Maritime Authority, Kenya Ferry Services, and the National Social Security Fund, Mr. Speaker. I beg to lay, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if I seek your indulgence, you had given a directive that the report by this committee is tabled yesterday And Mr. Speaker, I want to report that we endeavored to have the report tabled, but because of some of the clearances which are required to be done within the processes of laying the report, Mr. Speaker, that was not possible yesterday, but it was ready, and it is hereby tabled, Mr. Speaker. And at an opportune time, Mr. Speaker, if you would allow me, I would like to expound on some of the issues on this, because the issue of the ferries, Mr. Speaker, is a very sensitive matter and one that is of great interest to senators here, Mr. Speaker. I would seek your indulgence on the way forward on that.
Yeah, I think we can have notice later and then not right now. Okay. A report ad hoc committee of the Nakuru County Executive on the application for conferment of city status to Nakuru municipality.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Thursday, 21st November 2019. Report of the Ad hoc Committee of the Nakuru County Executive on the application for conferment of city status to Nakuru municipality. I thank you.
Order, members. Take your seats, Chair. Senator, what are these antiques you are? Honorable Senators, I have a communication on the application for conferment of city status to Nakuru municipality. The Senate Majority Leader has just tabled a paper on the application by Nakuru County Executive for conferment of city status to Nakuru municipality. On 11th November 2019, the Office of the Clerk of the Senate received a letter from the Clerk of the County Assembly of Nakuru conveying the resolution of the Assembly that adopted the report of the Ad hoc Committee of Nakuru County Executive on the application for conferment of city status to Nakuru municipality. Honorable Senators, I will briefly explain the requirement and process for such application. Section 5 of the Urban Areas and Cities Act provides that for an area to be classified as a city, it must, 1, have a population of at least 500,000 residents, B, be an integrated urban area or city development plan in accordance with the Urban Areas and Cities Act, 3, have demonstrated capacity to generate sufficient revenue to sustain its operations, 4, have demonstrated good system and records of prudent management, 5, have the capacity to effectively and efficiently deliver essential services to its residents as provided in the Act, 6, have institutionalized active participation by its residents in the management of its affairs, 7, have infrastructure facilities including but not limited to roads, streets, lighting, markets and fire stations, and an adequate capacity for disaster management, and 8, have capacity for functional and effective waste disposal. Section 8 of the Urban Areas and Cities Act provides for the procedure for application of city status, which includes the formation of an ad hoc committee to consider the matter and evaluate whether the criteria set out under Section 5 as read out is met. If the ad hoc committee is satisfied that this is the case, the county government transmits the recommendations to the county assembly for approval. Honorable Senators, where the county assembly approves the recommendations for conferment of city status to a municipality under this section, the clerk of the county assembly shall transmit the resolution to the Senate for consideration. This is where we currently stand in the process. Section 8(6) of the Act states that, and I quote, where the Senate approves the recommendations, the clerk of the Senate shall forward the resolutions to the President for conferment of city status on the municipality. Section 7 of the Urban Areas and Cities Act further states that, and I quote, the President may, on the resolution of the Senate, confer the status of a city on a municipality that meets the criteria set out in Section 5 by grant of a charter. To enable the Senate process this matter efficiently and effectively, I direct that this report be committed to the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations to scrutinize the process and ensure that the provisions of the Urban Areas and Cities Act that provides the procedure for application for conferment of city status was complied with. Honorable Senators, this is the first time we have received such an application. The committee is therefore expected to undertake this task meticulously and report back to the Senate by way of report to be tabled and debated in the House. Owing to the fact that the current session is almost coming to an end, I direct the committee to table its report on or before 25th February 2020. I thank you. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Chair of Public Accounts, Senator Linturi.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that the Senate adopts the report of the Session Committee on County Public Accounts and Investments on the inquiry into the financial operations of Kiambu, Busia, Kwale, Tana River, Trans Nzoia, Nyandarua, Migori, Kisumu, Samburu, Kericho, Bomet, Bungoma, Garissa, Isiolo, Kitui, Lamu, Makueni, Mandera, Marsabit, Meru, Mombasa, Nyamira, Taita Taveta, Uasin Gishu, Vihiga, and Wajir County Executives for the financial year 2013-2014, 1st July 2013 to 30th June 2014, laid on the table of the Senate today, today 20th November 2019.
Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
Senator Parangay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I raise person to standing order number 48-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on the delayed payment to officers who carried out the National Identity Management System NIMS, commonly referred to as the Huduma Number registration exercise. In the statement, the committee should explain the delay in payment to officers who carried out the exercise more than 6 months after the completion. Number 2, state whether there was prior planning and budgetary allocation for the exercise in view of the delay in payments to the officers. Number 3, explain by way of tabling a report before the Senate to justify spending of Kenya shilling 6 billion on NIMS, that is Huduma Number, and explain why the issuance and use of the said Huduma Number cards have not been effected to date. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mtula Kilonzo Jr. I say, okay, it's like you're on his statement.
Although I had another statement. Mr. Speaker, the concern I have, although I agree with the statement, in fact, the question should be, after 7 billion shillings and the urgency of the Huduma Number, and where exactly is the position of the numbers you were supposed to be given, and why haven't numbers been given? Why was it so urgent? And so that, although we face the same challenges in Makueni, the more important question is, where is the Huduma Number? Thank you.
Ali Abdullah Ibrahim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You remember very well the way we were pushed around when it came to the Huduma number. People were being told you cannot sleep, you cannot eat, you have to join lines day in, day out. People were running up and down. We were even asking, pleading, can you give us extra time? And up to today, Mr. Speaker, there's nothing. I'm carrying that paper here in my wallet. Yeah? It has no job, it has no nothing. And we were being told this one will be the most important number in this country. It is going to solve all your problems. Up to today, I don't know, 7 billion or 8 billion was used. And still those young men and women who are toiling and going to people's houses and sitting in the cold have not been paid. This is shameful, Mr. Speaker. Every time we are talking of bending bills, people not being paid. Now, are we going to put these things to the bending bills as well? I think this country should do better than this, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Senator Cheriot. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I join the rest of my colleagues in giving the necessary attention to this particular issue being brought before us by Senator Prengay. You'll recall, Mr. Speaker, that earlier, before this exercise was undertaken, I brought a question to this House that led to the invitation of the Minister for Interior, together with his PS and the rest of the team that was to undertake this exercise. Though half-heartedly, the House gave them the green light and the light of approval, because many of the things that we questioned were not actually brought to fore. But here we are today, and Senator Prengay has captured actually the mood of a country. On many occasions, when you're seated in gatherings, people ask you, as a member of parliament, what are you doing about some of these things that completely do not make sense in this country? That after being pushed and shoved around, almost 4 or 5 months down the line, there is absolutely no communication. How many people were captured in the data, when they intend to release it, what will be the way forward after this, especially in light of the amount of money that was spent, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Parliament is not impotent. In fact, a good reading of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker, equates representation, which is the work of Parliament, to sovereignty. That Kenyans practice their sovereignty through us, their representatives. Therefore, we cannot turn this House into a house of lamentations each time Kenyans look up to us for leadership. I want to request, Mr. Speaker, that the chair do furnishes, and it's good because Senator Prengay was very specific, that it be furnished by way of a report before this House on the issues of expenditure, the little matter of the young people that participated in this exercise having not been paid, but most importantly, Mr. Speaker, on justification for this exercise and what the government has achieved this far. Mr. Speaker, this is an important issue that Kenyans need to know the truth. Thank you.
Senator Wambua Enoch.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to also contribute to the statement by Senator Prengay. Speaker, I was also in the process of seeking a similar statement, but I was advised by the Secretariat that Senator Prengay had already requested the same statement. The Speaker, there are a few issues that come to the fore in this matter of Huduma number. One, Mr. Speaker, is the manner in which this project was launched. There was so much pushing to get everybody in this country to participate and to register for Huduma number. In fact, so serious was the government on this matter that I remember that all parliamentary party leaders took turns and went to different parts of this country to launch this project. I saw the leader of ODM in Mombasa launching this project. My party leader was in Muranga, accompanied by our colleague, Senator Wetangula, launching that project. The ANC leader, Musalia Mudavadi, was in Kajiado, launching this project. The president led a big brigade of senior government officials to Mwala to launch this project. Mr. Speaker, 6 months down the line,
No.
To an individual senator, number one. Point number two, Mr. Speaker, I never said that it is on the basis of that phone call that people made the decision. That's why I was very specific to Senator Mutula, that you need to listen to the entire context of my argument, that whatever it is that you can do to a select committee, it is harder to do it to a sitting of the entire House. That is plain and simple. It can be even to the point, Mr. Speaker, of trying to convince them otherwise. Therefore, I do not understand where Senator Ochilo Ayako gets the impression that the phone call that, for example, if he received, because I never mentioned him, that is what informed his decision.
Senator Bogisho.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know, I don't understand the belligerence of Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, you know Senator Bogisho was on phone when I began making my argument. That's why he doesn't seem to understand the whole context of my argument. But because I do not want to waste the time of the House, you know, Mr. Speaker,
what's your point of order, Senator?
You also need to protect me
I'll protect you.
From his...
Speaker, the Speaker, my point of order is Mr. Cheruiyot in order, or Honorable Cheruiyot in order to mislead the House and the entire country, including West Pokot County, that the Senator was on phone. Mr. Speaker, I'm not even capable of being on phone in this House. When the, when the Speaker is sitting there, Mr. Speaker, you would have noticed it. Mr. Cheruiyot is not here on hire from the chair, Speaker.
Senator Cheruiyot, I think you can conclude that matter so that we make progress. I think you are heading in the right direction.
Yes. So if Senator Bogisho was to allow me, I'd conclude my matter. The fact that the point that I was trying to raise, Senator Bogisho, is that had you concentrated enough to listen to me begin my argument, you would have realized what I'm trying to make. But Mr. Speaker, if in trying to push my point on the difference between a select committee and a committee of the whole, there is any inkling towards making it appear as if a select committee is more susceptible to being unduly influenced, then I withdraw that perception. Though I do not know how you can withdraw a perception in someone's mind, because to me, in my mind, it wasn't there. But I want to withdraw that kind of insinuation on the part of anyone, Mr. Speaker. Can I now proceed, Mr. Speaker?
Conclude.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, but then, since we began this debate, Senator Sakaja, who's the originator of this statement, has come and brought in a twist to this particular issue, that perhaps the best way to handle this particular issue, Mr. Speaker, is to pick on 5 areas that are more critical to the problems that are in Nairobi and have a committee look through them. Then, having made such submissions, Mr. Speaker, I abandoned my earlier thought on why it is important.
But I thought the matter is going to be ruled by the Speaker.
Which one?
This same matter, Sakaja has brought the issue.
No, I'm saying I'm abandoning my persuasion, Mr. Speaker, on whether to proceed. You know, earlier on, I thought a committee of the whole would be better. But, Mr. Speaker, I pray that we stay long enough until members get to see the difference between what I was trying to argue. Then we'll have that discussion that day. But in no way do I imply that anyone is of a lesser character or conduct in this House.
Okay, Senator Cheruiyot. Senator Cherargei on this matter is out. Finally, Senator Olekina.
Because I need them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to support this statement by Senator Sakaja. I was listening to Senator Sakaja when I was walking into the chambers, and earlier on I also had an opportunity to watch him with the entire leadership of Nairobi bringing these issues. So I must congratulate him for really caring about the future of the people of Nairobi. The people of Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, sir, include us who live here, because we have homes here so that we can be able to work here. This House, Mr. Speaker, sir, when I remember, passed a piece of legislation which was sponsored by the good senator from Kiambu, the assumption of office, which I believe was supposed to solve certain problems which Senator Sakaja brought into light with his statement. The issue of a county governor. I remember, Mr. Speaker, sir, last week I brought in a piece of legislation, a motion. I sponsored a motion to try and give deputy governors
more powers in the event that we do not have a substantive governor in place. We have a crisis in this country. And if we do not rise up to the occasion, the situation in Nairobi will get worse. There is allegation left, right, and center of cartels. If you talk to Governor Sonko, he will tell you cartels are out to destroy him. The statement by Senator Sakaja is also pointing out to cartels. These cartels, suppose hypothetically today, this House succeeded, or rather cartels out there succeeded in removing the governor, the current governor of Nairobi. Who is going to take over? The current speaker. There are still issues regarding the current speaker because there's no governor, someone who can take over. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I think it is about time that we take these matters very seriously and try to find a way to ensure that if that piece of legislation was really enacted into law, a substantive deputy governor is elected, so that, or is appointed, so that tomorrow, if either ESCC succeed in removing the governor, or maybe there's a court order that bars the governor from accessing the office, the people of Nairobi will not continue suffering. This is the capital city of Kenya, I dare say of East Africa. Currently, Mr. Speaker, sir, as of 2 days ago, November 18th, the current eligible pending bills of Nairobi City County is 21 billion shillings. Eligible pending bills as of 18th of November. These were pending bills that were re-audited by the Auditor General. And I hope that next week, Mr. Speaker, sir, will come up with a substantive motion to be able to direct Treasury not to release any more money to these counties until these pending bills are paid on a first-in, first-out basis. When you travel around Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, sir, even today, you'll be surprised at the level of operation of misappropriations of funds in this county. Roundabouts, Mr. Speaker, sir, and I want you to be observant, and every member of this House to be observing. Every week, grass is removed, new grass is put in. I mean, seriously, what kind of operations are we running? In our committee, Mr. Speaker, sir, of PAC, we have raised concerns about issues regarding Nairobi City County. In terms of the issue of Jampo Pay, I remember sitting for long hours to be able to see where that money is going. Those contracts, we understand that Jampo Pay, the contract was terminated. And maybe, allegedly another company has been appointed to collect the money. I think we need to think seriously of the way forward. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'll summarize by saying, I believe this is not a matter of setting up a select committee. This is a matter that all 47 county governors will have to sit here, including the nominated senators, and we discuss these things for the interest of the people of Nairobi. And we become very objective for the future of Nairobi as a county, as a county government, or as part of the national government, whichever way it will go. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Okay, Honorable Senators, I think the matter has been spoken to, and it's a matter that is weighty raised by the Senator Nairobi. And I know it's not supposed to go to any committee, but because of the weight of the matter, I'm using my discretion under Standing Order 47.3 to direct it to the Committee of the Devolution Committee and the Governmental Affairs, who will look at the issues and advise. There's no point of order. You are out of order. Who will then come and advise this House on the way forward, because they must distill out the issues that have been raised. Because again, Honorable Senators, we must be very careful the way we are approaching some of these things. Let us not come up with things that are not going to be practical, then we end up, but remember, all committees sit on behalf of the Senate. And if one committee is embarrassed or, is belittled, like the other time when they said governor was lecturing senators, it is the whole Senate that is in disrepute. So really, they were lecturing the committee. So we are saying that we must now be very careful and come up with practical solutions that are not going to embarrass this House. And that's why that particular committee of devolution, and I've not seen the chair, but that committee must now put its foot down and come up with a way forward which should be reported to this House. Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on a point of order to seek your directions on something. Senator Olekina has alluded to it, and I think as the leader of this House, and as a matter of national concern, I think it's a matter that needs your communication. The Cabinet Secretary, Acting Cabinet Secretary Kuria Tan, has issued a direction that he will bar 15 counties from releasing funds to counties if they do not pay pending bills. My reading of the article of section 97 on the procedure of under the Public Finance Management Bill reads as follows: 97(2). Not later than 7 days after the date of the decision to stop the transfer of funds, the Cabinet Secretary shall seek the approval of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, the suggestion given, even alluded to by my good friend Senator Olekina, is that there appears to be a discretion by the Cabinet Secretary to stop the release of funds without the approval of Parliament. I would like, Mr. Speaker, possibly in the next time we have a sitting, you issue a proper communication so that it is clear to the country how that process of stoppage of funds should be followed according to this law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. I think I will be, yes, Senator Olekina, what is it?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you. I think this is a matter of national concern. Senator Malala just walked in and he said, life out there is hard. There's no money out there. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think we have to be, we have to treat this matter, as a sui generis, something which is unique. Because what is happening out there? I just spoke to a gentleman, and I know maybe the Cabinet Secretary probably issued a premature circular that maybe did not meet all the thresholds of law. But I think it's about time for us to really take this matter seriously. Why are we sending? This Senate is supposed to be defending devolution. Why are we sending money to county governments, yet they are not paying the bills? As of today, those eligible pending bills, and there was a directive, Mr. Speaker, sir, amount to over, 63 billion. That is money if it is circulated. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, as you give a communication, I think it is important that we really think about this. And I'm actually thinking of bringing a motion so that we can be able to find a way to balance these people. People need money out in, there are people who are killing themselves, Mr. Speaker, sir, because they have not paid their bills. They have taken loans. We must care about these Kenyans.
Okay, I'm going to give the chairman finance, but as we do that, I think what Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. is raising is very important. That as a House, we must be careful not to cede our ground, because we are going to allow processes to continue, and that's why we are in court, because certain processes have not been followed and the House has been bypassed. So as much as we agree, but we must also know that as a House, we have a role to play, and our role cannot be sidestepped. Senator Mohamud.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to agree with Senator Mutula Kilonzo. Whereas pending bills is a big issue in this country, and counties must actually pay the pending bills to the suppliers and the contractors, I think we must also, in the process, respect the law. The Constitution must be adhered to and respected by all. Last week, I think the National Treasury issued a lot of circulars. A lot of them which shows that there's a big crisis in this country, even the way we do things. So I think, whereas we would like the pending bills to be paid, and it doesn't matter, this Senate has been discussing, we would like the National Treasury to share that with us so that the approval is given, so that when counties actually, when they don't get those releases, everybody suffers. The suppliers who have not been paid, the people whose salaries must be paid, the other new suppliers, it will be a big confusion. So I think it's important that we need proper direction so that the Constitution, as articulated in Article 97, be followed to the letter. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Malala, because I want to give a ruling on this.
Mr. Speaker, it is true that life out there is very difficult.
because, Mr. Speaker, I think there is
Is that why you have reduced weight, less weight?
Mr. Speaker, I want to join my colleagues in saying that it's very important for us to adhere to the rule of law, but at the same time remind ourselves that Article 96 of our Constitution gave us the mandate to oversight and represent our people, and Article 1 of the Constitution gave us the sovereign power to represent our people. And it's very important to note that the suppliers who have done business with counties are our people, and therefore it is our core mandate to protect those suppliers. Mr. Speaker, I want to join my colleague, Senator Ledama Olekina of Narok, who suggests that counties which are unable to pay pending bills, let them not receive money. We're not saying that those counties will not operate moving forward, but we are saying let the monies that will be released be conditional. Let them go and pay the bills, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is sad to have people who have taken loans from banks, supplying counties, and governors prioritizing their friends. Mr. Speaker, most of the county government governors prioritize paying people who are giving back commission to them, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, a common mwananchi who has sold his maize to get capital to do business with the county governments are not paid, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am of the strong opinion that it is important for the pending bills to be monitored from Treasury. I would suggest that that money be paid directly from the Treasury so that the remaining amount can be disbursed to those respective counties. As pertains Nairobi County, Mr. Speaker, it is very, very vital to note that Nairobi County
Senator Sakaja, what is your intervention? Oh, okay. Proceed, Senator Malala.
Thank you. Nairobi County hosts our capital city of this country. And therefore, the management of the capital city must not be taken for granted. I have seen pertinent issues being raised here by my good friend, Senator Sakaja. And I want to ask the Speaker to consider having the committee of the whole House to discuss matters Nairobi, because Nairobi affects Kakamega, Nairobi affects Wajir, Nairobi affects even Kericho.
Senator Malala, you are out of order. I already made a ruling on that matter. I hope you are not challenging my ruling.
No, I'm not challenging.
So don't proceed along those lines, because I've already made a ruling. It will be up to the committee to make recommendations on how we proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I would encourage members of this House to attend that committee and contribute, Mr. Speaker, because we must take part in the decision-making of Nairobi, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, many of us now have seen how Nairobi has deteriorated. When you walk into the streets, there's a lot of unlawlessness. Hawkers are selling everywhere. We don't have enough supply of water, and we cannot leave this to the Senator of Nairobi only. We want to join Senator Sakaja in the fight to restore sanity in Nairobi County. And I want to donate myself to that cause. I will work with you, Senator Sakaja, to ensure that we protect our capital city. Otherwise, I want to encourage Senator Sakaja to continue with the same spirit of oversighting Nairobi County without fear. And nobody can intimidate Sakaja. I have seen goons walking around town saying that if you talk about a certain governor, you will be humiliated. Senator Sakaja, I want to ask you, put on a brave face. Handle your issues, Senator Sakaja, the way they are provided for in the Constitution of Kenya. And nobody, be it a governor, be it a speaker, be it a member of county assembly, will not stop Senator Sakaja from executing his mandate. Thank you.
I know in your other life you are thespian, but, but well put. Senator Cheriot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, I was wondering whether Senator Malala meant that Sakaja should put on a brave face or actually be brave. I think he meant the latter rather than the former, Mr. Speaker. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, this is a very important issue. Mr. Speaker, I want to point out where the problem is. If you are to ask me where the challenge in terms of pending bills in counties come from, it is from Article 228 of our Speaker, of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker. The Office of the Controller of Budget. I think that is the office that has failed this country, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, you've been a governor, and I know you understand how public finance in counties is managed, where you cannot expense public funds unless you have a budget for that particular budget line item, Mr. Speaker. So how is it that county governments are able to requisition money, say, to pay a particular road, but the county government and the mandarins therein end up paying a particular supplier, as has been pointed out by Senator Malala, because that supplier is a friend to the governor? Mr. Speaker, this is a very important issue, and therefore, I do request that the Committee of Finance and Budget be quickly seized of this matter, and particularly check the provisions of Article 228(6), Mr. Speaker, where the Constitution clearly states that for every 4 months, the Office of the Controller of Budget shall submit to each House of Parliament a report on the implementation of budgets of national and county government. Senator Ledama, the Controller of Budget needs to give you, every 4 months, reports showing who are the people that Governor Samuel Tunai has paid the last 4 months, so that you're able to keep a track of all the people that are being paid. And if you notice a particular supplier, a particular entity that is repeatedly paid, yet you know the young people in your county that are supplying services to the county government, but because they do not have the high connections, they are not paid, you begin raising questions from that particular point. Those are the provisions, and that is the intention of Article 228(6). Therefore, Mr. Speaker, having a new controller of budget in office now that is about to be vetted by our colleagues in the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, I'd quickly suggest that when she takes on the reins of the Office of a Controller of Budget, that she be brought before this particular House. You do recall, Mr. Speaker, that when we came this term of Parliament, in the 12th Parliament, Mr. Speaker, we brought Agnes Odhiambo here and raised with her the issue of pending bills. Unfortunately, she has left office without having sufficiently addressed this particular issue. Mr. Speaker, the audit that was carried out by the Office of the Auditor General unraveled things that many of us did not know.
Senator Maruma, what is your point of intervention?
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I think I got lost along the way. You know, we were dealing with Senator Sakaja's issue. Then suddenly we are discussing pending bills. I don't know where we are because we want to contribute. I really want to know where we are. Is it a statement? Is it a motion? Where are we, Mr. Speaker?
I think it was a point of order. There were two issues. The matter of Sakaja already made a ruling. Then Senator Mutula Kilonzo raised the issue of pending bills. That's what I'm now just concluding, because I want to give a direction.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Speaker, you need to guide Senator Maruma that next time you're lost in terms of direction in the House, that's why we have the clerk's table. You walk there and find out what is happening, but not to interrupt people who are speaking. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, I was concluding by saying government should facilitate business, Mr. Speaker, and not just come up with unilateral decisions that affect the livelihoods of Kenyans without any reference to what the Constitution says, Mr. Speaker. I've just seen, for example, Mr. Speaker, that today the Cabinet Secretary in charge of the environment has extended the period of moratorium on the ban of logging in our forests, Mr. Speaker, for another 6 months. You do remember, Mr. Speaker, when we were in Naivasha with the KEPSA meeting, that this is one of the issues that was strongly criticized in terms of how the decision was made. It points out to the issue that Senator Mutula Kilonzo is raising. The fact that government unilaterally makes decisions without regard to the Constitution and the consideration of how it affects the lives of Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, in giving directions to this particular issue, I do suggest that the committee you will task to look into this particular issue comes back with a report and direction from Senate on what it is that we shall do and give firm policy direction so that we deal for once and for all with this issue of pending bills in counties and national governments as well, because national government is equally as guilty as counties, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Senator Ledama, what clarification did you want to give?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. On this issue of pending bills, I want to report and inform the House that a team of us made up of a few members of the Finance Committee and just other senators met with the Cabinet Secretary yesterday. And our Committee on PAC has committed to bring in a motion on Tuesday to be able to direct the Cabinet Secretary on the issue of pending bills. Because the information that we received yesterday is that the governors in IBEC had agreed earlier on that the money that is going to be released, which was about 60 billion, was going to be able to pay all the bills. The money which was released in that quarter was around 83 billion, but the governors did not pay. And that's what led to the circular that the Cabinet Secretary issued. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'd like to commit to this House that on Tuesday we'll bring a motion that will put an end to this issue of pending bills. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Mutula Jr.
The reason I raise this issue, Mr. Speaker, is because the circular is already 3 days old. So by Monday next week, by Tuesday next week, the 7 days applicable will already apply. And therefore, it's important, although Senator Olekina insists that you bring a motion, it will not help the cause, because the idea is that there must be a process for stoppage of funds. For the benefit of our colleagues, we had this issue in the last Senate. We applied for 4 counties not to receive funds, and the Cabinet Secretary said we didn't follow the process. So now it's reverse. He has issued a direction, and therefore there must be a process so that we guide the country accordingly. Because there's a danger. There's a danger that there could be a county like Makueni that owes, say, 200 million shillings. But they then do not get 400 million because they owe 200 million. So it must be clear. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, I think we appreciate the efforts by CPAC, but I want to direct the Chair Finance to meet the Cabinet Secretary on Tuesday and present a report to this House on that issue of pending bills. Next statement. Senator Faki, statement.
Mheshimiwa Spika, nimesimama chini ya kanuni namba 48(1) ya kanuni za Bunge la Senate, na nimesimama kuomba taarifa kutoka kwa Kamati ya Usalama wa Taifa, Ulinzi na Masuala ya Nchi za Kigeni kuhusiana na kupigwa risasi na kuuawa kwa mwendesha pikipiki Leonard Komora na mwanajeshi wa Jeshi la Wanamaji katika kambi ya Jeshi la Wanamaji Mtongwe, kaunti ya Mombasa, jana tarehe 20 mwezi wa 11 mwaka 2019 asubuhi. Mheshimiwa Spika, katika taarifa hiyo, kamati inapaswa kuelezea sababu za mwendesha bodaboda huyo kijana Leonard Komora kupigwa risasi na kuuawa. Pili, kueleza mbona hakutumiwa mbinu mbadala za kumdhibiti kijana huyo kama alikuwa ni tishio kwa usalama. Tatu, kueleza hali ya usalama baina ya raia na wanaoishi karibu na kambi za jeshi nchini kwa jumla. Na kuelezea hali ya usalama baina ya raia wanaoishi karibu na kambi za jeshi kwa jumla na wanajeshi, hasa kufuatilia hali tete ya usalama baina ya wanajeshi na raia. Mwisho, Mheshimiwa Spika, kueleza ni mikakati gani iliyowekwa na serikali kupunguza na hata kuondoa hofu za wakazi dhidi ya wanajeshi kwa jumla na hususan wale wa kambi ya Mtongwe, kwa kuwa tukio hili sio la kwanza na kwamba mkazi mwingine alipigwa risasi siku chache zilizokwisha. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Senator Sakaja.
Madam Speaker, I wanted to comment on an earlier issue, but since he's raised this statement, on a matter of security, and I can't see another member of the committee, we will bring a response in the quickest time possible.
Okay, thank you. Senator Mwaruma.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support Senator from Mombasa, Senator Faki, for this very important statement. More often than not, Madam Speaker, we've heard about the security agencies using excessive force to deal with the public. Case in point is where we had the police officers using excessive force to deal with unrest during the strike of JQAT students. We've also had cases, many cases of extrajudicial killings in Kenya. We've also had border riders being disturbed or picked by the police officers when it's not warranted, Madam Speaker. I think this is a very important statement which would determine or would give explanation as to why people who have been given guns are not able to use them for the right issue. They're supposed to be protecting us, or the soldiers are supposed to protect us from external aggression and not to use the guns to kill our people. So I think I support that statement and will be looking forward to a very good response. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Olekina Ledama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, I rise to support this statement by Senator Faki. Madam Speaker, if you go to Hurlingham, DOD, you'll be able to see that the Department of Defense has fully guarded its territory. And unless you want to be shot, there's no way you can be able to bypass the barriers set by the military there. When I heard about the shooting of a young man in a border, a lot of things came to mind, which would be important for us to understand and get clarification from the committee which will commit this statement to, is on the security of the territory occupied by the Navy. It will be important because there is no security area that anyone can just go and drive in their border. So I think, to me, Madam Speaker, as I support this statement, it will be crystal and very important for us to be able to have an understanding of this area and the circumstances that led to the young man being shot down by the Navy. The issue of security is not something that we can take lightly. It's just like last week when we were talking about the issue of drones. We have to be careful so that in the event that someone ends up encroaching into someone else's territory, there are ways of following up to ensure that at least safety prevails. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Finally, Senator Wario College Juma.
Asante, Bi Speaker. Pia ningependa kuunga mkono arifa iliyotolewa na seneta wa Mombasa ya kwamba mtu wa bodaboda ameuawa kiholela. Bi Speaker, nilitoa arifa hapo beleni tukiwa Kitui ya kwamba watu watatu sehemu ya Tana River waliuawa na watu ambao walijitambulisha kama polisi. Na katika arifa yangu nilipewa wiki 2 ili niweze kupata jawabu ya wale ambao waliweza kufanya uhalifu huo. Na bado tunaendelea kupata habari ya kwamba watu ya bodaboda wanauawa, na pia tunapata pia polisi wakipiga vijana wa shule ya university. Na hasa inakaa kwenye picha dhahir shair wakati mwingi wakiwa wanapiga vijana mateke hata na wasichana pia. Kwa hivyo mimi naunga arifa hii mkono, na tungependa kama seneti kamati ambayo ni ya usalama ya kitaifa ambayo Johnson Sakaja rafiki yangu ni vice chair waweze kutupatia habari hiyo na kwa sababu gani polisi wanaenda rafu katika nchi ya Kenya. Asante.
Thank you, Senator. That statement stands committed to the Committee of Security. Honorable Senators, the next statement is from Senator Musuruve.
Now, thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to make a statement. But, Madam Speaker, kindly allow me, before I make the statement, to just congratulate you for being nominated to actually be in charge of, I'm lacking a better word, of the disability fund in this country. Madam Speaker, when people are congratulating you, I was not around, and I want to really say the President did a commendable job in actually nominating you because of the keen interest you have on issues of disability. And Kenyans must know, Madam Speaker, that we have friends in the Senate who are keen about fronting issues of disability. And I want to wish you well, Madam Speaker, as you ventilate on issues of disability and ensure that persons with disabilities actually reach parity in this country. I have confidence in you. Thank you. Madam Speaker, I would like to make a statement on election of Ms. Ashura Michael as Speaker of the East African Youth Parliament. Madam Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 47.1, I rise to make a statement on the election of Ms. Ashura Michael as the Speaker of the second sitting of the East African Youth Parliament that took place from 14th to 15th of November 2019 in Arusha, Tanzania. Madam Speaker, I take this opportunity to congratulate Ashura Michael for being elected as the Speaker during the second sitting of the East African Youth Parliament. Ms. Ashura Michael is a young, deaf Kenyan who is passionate about her own cause. Her election to the position is an inspiration to many deaf persons in this country and the East African region at large. Madam Speaker, among the main categories of disability, the deaf are the most excluded, marginalized, and hardly understood. Many of them live in a cocoon because of the language barrier. The election of Ms. Ashura is therefore a big step towards dealing with this exclusion and marginalization that is normally meted on the deaf, and a confirmation that they, that is deaf, are equal to the task of leadership. Madam Speaker, I'm happy about this election because the East African Youth Parliament was then obligated to use, will then be obligated to use sign language during the proceedings. The use of sign language is a challenge in our own parliament, and despite Article 120 of the Constitution of Kenya providing for the use of English, Kiswahili, and sign language, there are no sign language interpreters inside our chambers and in our committee meetings. I therefore take this opportunity to challenge and urge the leadership of Parliament to highly consider employing sign language interpreters so as to fill the constitutional requirement. Madam Speaker, when PWDs are given an opportunity to lead, they work with a lot of zeal and determination. They're able to perform just like any other person. What PWDs lack sometimes is the opportunity to showcase their talent. I'm happy that such opportunity presented itself to Ms. Ashura. I'm confident that she showcased her leadership skills and will continue doing so. It is my belief and hope that many more avenues will open up for PWDs to afford them an opportunity to lead and act on their own course, on their own issues and all other issues affecting our society. Madam Speaker, Ms. Ashura is an example of a world without limits. Although she is totally deaf, she has defied the odds and done what many able-bodied youths have not been able to do. She has been instrumental in empowering youths in leadership through Science TV. She has also boldly articulated issues of the youth in quite a number of forums. I believe that this election is a good platform for her to voice issues of disability and come up with proposals of improving the lives of youths with disabilities. It is my honor and pleasure as a PWD representative in this house to congratulate her and wish her all the best in her future endeavors. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Senator Haji Faria Ali.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I can see women speakers are better all the time. I don't know whether I'm allowed to say that. But yesterday, twice I pressed the button and people who just walked in were given opportunity to speak. So now that I have an opportunity to talk about it, let me talk about it. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, I also wish to congratulate you for being nominated as a trustee. You have the ability and capacity to serve that role diligently and with a lot of zeal. Madam Speaker, I also wish to thank Senator Musuruve for bringing this statement to this House. Madam Speaker, I always comment that people with disability are overrepresented in this House because of the kind of work Senator Musuruve always does. And she seems to be knowing around the world what is happening as far as disability is concerned. Madam Speaker, I also wish to join her in congratulating Ashura, because people with disabilities have a lot of, there are a lot of stereotypes against them. It's not that they don't have the ability, they probably have even much more ability than people with ability, because when they are passionate about something, they are at a different level in terms of how they handle whatever responsibility that is entrusted to them. Madam Speaker, I wish to request this country or anyone else in the world to give them more responsibility, because they are up to the task, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I think empowering people with disability is not even empowering that individual, it is empowering other people who always thought that they don't have the ability to do something. And then through the inspiration of the person who was given that responsibility, then they have a reason to dream that they are also able to reach that level, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that is why sometimes there is a lot of stereotypes in the world whereby people with disability are sometimes even not allowed to be exposed. There are people who even feel up to this day and age, people with disability are locked up, they don't get an opportunity to go to school. So nomination like the one that now was bestowed upon Ashura, the youth Ashura, who is also deaf, will go a long way in giving inspiration to other youthful or even people living with a disability who now know that sky is not even the limit for them, that they can do anything that they wish to do. And even as a woman, because also women, not only even the able women are normally disadvantaged. So when I see a person who lives with a disability, who is also a woman, bestowed into such an honor, I feel honored myself, Madam Speaker. And I wish that this will give encouragement to the ladies out there, people living with a disability out there, to go for it because they can. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senators, and I thank you for those good words of congratulations. Next, we have a statement pursuant to Standing Order 51-1B from chairpersons of committees. And I want to see how many chairs are here. The first one is the chairperson, Standing Committee on National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity, Regional Integration. See here? Yes, please, you can go ahead. Senator Jebeni.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I raise pursuant to Standing Order 51B to make a statement on the activities of Standing Committee on National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity and Regional Integration for the period commencing 1st July to 30th September 2019. Madam Speaker, during the period under review, our committee held a total of 12 sittings. Madam Speaker, the committee is currently considering 2 statements by Senator Cleophas Malala on ethnic and regional distribution of high cadre jobs in all government institutions and agencies, and Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. on plight of internally displaced persons and recent conflict as reported in some parts of the country. Madam Speaker, with regard to petitions, the committee considered 1 petition concerning Kibra internally displaced persons, which was committed to the committee on 19th November 2018. The committee met the petitioners, considered the matter, and shall be meeting the Cabinet Secretary in charge of internal security and coordination of national government so as to conclude on the petition. Madam Speaker, the committee held a consultative meeting in Nairobi between 25th June 2019 to 30th September 2019 with the National Council of Persons with Disability on the government's constitutional obligation in ensuring the rights of PWDs as entrenched in the Constitution is fully implemented. The committee also met the National Cohesion and Integration Commission to deliberate on NCIC report on ethnic and diversity audit on county public service boards. Madam Speaker, during the period under review, our committee between 18th to 30th August 2019 undertook fact-finding visits to the East African community. And during the visit, it is worth noting that the committee observed and recommended various urgent interventions to support these institutions. It is our humble request to this House to consider and adopt the committee findings to allow EAC institutions to flourish once again. Madam Speaker, the committee intends to carry out the following key activities during the next quarter. 1, undertake county visits in regions affected by conflicts, namely Kisumu and Nandi border, Baringo and West Pokot border, Makueni, Taita Taveta, and Kajiado borders, access of justice to include mental disability. 3, ensuring the National Action Plan for Disaster Risk Reduction 2019 to 2020 of the Pan-African Parliament and the East African Legislative Assembly to deliberate on issues of regional integration and conflict resolution. I thank you.
Thank you, Chair, Senator. The next chairperson is the Chairperson, Standing Committee on National Security, Defense, and Foreign Relations. In absence of the chairperson, we defer. The next chairperson is the Chairperson of the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation. Roads and Transportation. In absence of the chair, we defer. The next one is the statement from the Chairperson, Standing Committee on Tourism, Trade, and Industrialization. Welcome, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is Madam Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 51(1)B to make a statement on the activities of the Standing Committee on Tourism, Trade, and Industrialization for the period commencing 1st July to 30th July 2019. Madam Speaker, during the period under review, our committee held a total of 15 sittings, considering 3 bills. The committee also participated in a conference convened by the East African Grain Council and held 2 public hearing forums for the bills under consideration. Madam Speaker, in respect to the county uniform licensing bills, Senate Bill number 5 of 2019, our committee is currently considering the submissions received by the public and will be tabling its report on the bill. The committee is considering committee stage amendments for the Street Vendors Protection and Livelihood Bill, Senate number 10 of 2019, and the County Tourism Bill, Senate Bills number 3 of 2019, and will be tabling its report on the bills in due course. With regard to petitions, Madam Speaker, the committee has conclusively dealt with 2 petitions and tabled the reports on the same. Arising from the petition on reviews of the laws relating to business premises, the committee intends to introduce an amendment bill to amend the Landlord and Tenants, Shops, Hotels, and Catering Establishments Act of 1965. Madam Speaker, in the period under review, the committee held consultative meetings with National Treasury, Ministry of Industrialization, and Kenya Vision 2030 on development of industrial infrastructure and the status of industrial parks, special economic zones, and economic processing and participated in the 8th African Grain Summit AGTS held on 3rd to 5th October at Salova White Sands in Mombasa. Madam Speaker, during the period under review again, my committee experienced challenges in the execution of the mandate due to failure by the cabinet secretaries to honor invitation by the committee and poor attendance by public during public hearings. Madam Speaker, the committee intends to carry out the following key activities during the quarter. 1, or A, Madam Speaker, is consideration of the pre-publication scrutiny of the legislative proposal on the County Resource Development Bill, hold a meeting with the relevant stakeholders on the formulation and reviews of the laws relating to cooperatives and circle societies, hold a meeting with the State Department of Tourism and on status of local tourism funding at the counties by Kenya Tourism Fund, KTF, and Tourism Finance Corporation, TFC, with the Ministry of Industry and with the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Cooperatives to deliberate on the alignment of micro and macro small enterprise authority mandates with devolved systems of governance. Finally, Madam Speaker, we intend to make county visits to check on the sugar industry and government-owned hotels in Western Kenya and Nyanza region, and markets and county dairy industry in the central region, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that is the report of the committee. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Chair. The next chair is the chairperson of the Sessional Committee on... It's a point of order from Senator. What is it, Senator?
Madam Speaker, thank you. I haven't heard from the chairman of Trade and Tourism Committee a response of a statement that was raised by my colleague, Senator Pareno, on the issue of wildlife conflict in one of our Kajiado East constituency in Kajiado County. Neither have I heard in his plan, because I've had some plan activities, neither have I heard him even say that the committee was intending to visit the place, having heard the much impact, the effects of the human and wildlife conflict in that particular area. So, Madam Speaker, I seek your intelligence, your indulgence on this, because as concerned leaders of that place, we need to hear the plans of the committee in terms of that very, very important statement that was raised that particular time.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Gibiru, you want to ask another question on the same?
Yes, Madam Speaker, thank you. 2 things, Madam Speaker. One is that we held the meeting with the relevant ministry, and we invited the distinguished Senator Paleno, and we exchanged even the details with the ministry, and we had planned a meeting to visit there. But Madam Speaker, again, too, is that what came out is that probably the light committee that was to deal with the statement was the Land of Lands and Environment Madam Speaker. But having said that, I promise to check on it and find out what the committee can be able to do if the issue is still outstanding. And I'll give a report on Tuesday, Madam Speaker, this coming Tuesday.
Thank you. Bring it on Tuesday. I think what the senator was saying is that it's not coming out in your report. I think as chairs, when you bring your reports, make sure that you have covered all the issues that have come before the Senate. Thank you. The next statement is a statement from the Sessional Committee on County Public Accounts and Investment. I don't see the chair, so we defer. The next one, the last one, is the Chairperson Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation. Senator Faria Haji.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to present on behalf of my committee. Madam Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 51, subsection 1, subsection B, to make a statement on the activities of Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation for the period 1st of July to 30th of September. Madam Speaker, during that period under review, the committee had a total of 14 sittings, and undertook one county visit to Kitui County. Madam Speaker, the committee also held 3 engagements with stakeholders as follows. 1, on various regulations under the Crops Act, the committee met the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries. On public procurement and asset disposal Act regulations 2019, the committee, together with the Committee of Finance, met the National Treasury, Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, and the Commission on Revenue Allocation, and the committee held meetings with counterpart county assemblies of Kitui, Makueni, Uasin Gishu, and Migori on diverse dates. Madam Speaker, with respect to county visits during the period under review, the committee visited Kitui County during the Senate sitting in Kitui from 16 to 20th September. The committee met and interacted with its counterpart County Assembly of Kitui and Makueni. The visits were geared towards capacity building and networking with the county assembly committees. Madam Speaker, committee also held a meeting with the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries for pre-publication scrutiny of regulation proposed to be made on the Crops Act. And they are as follows. Crops Act, Food and Crops Regulation 2019, the Crops, Horticulture Crops Regulation 2019, the Crops Tea Industry Regulation 2019, the Crops Pyrethrum Regulation 2019, and the Crops Nuts and Oil Regulation 2019. Madam Speaker, during the meeting with the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries, the committee had the opportunity to raise various questions regarding to the published crops, Irish potatoes Regulation 2019, as they were brought to the committee while having been published and already in force. Madam Speaker, as this committee has mentioned sometimes, different sectors ignore the Senate. But now that after the interaction between us and the Ministry of Agriculture, given that agriculture is devolved, we agreed that next time they pass any regulation without concurrence from our committee, then we shall revoke those regulations. But we agreed way forward that they will be bringing all the time, and that now, as you can see, they brought so many of them. Madam Speaker, during the period under consideration and the approval crops, we've approved the Coffee General Regulation 2019. The committee, jointly with the Committee of Finance, Budget and Finance and Budget met with the National Treasury for pre-publication scrutiny on the draft Public Procurement and Disposal Regulation 2019. Madam Speaker, the committee will engage in the following activity in the next quarter. Consideration of draft intergovernmental relations sector forum regulation 2019 and the draft intergovernmental relations units guidelines 2019. We intend to visit Kisumu, Nyamira, Kisii counties on capacity building missions of counterpart county assemblies and their respective county executive. Because, Madam Speaker, as part of our visit to the counterpart county assemblies, we've realized that most county executives do not respect the need for regulation after certain acts have been passed by county assemblies, Madam Speaker. So as a result of that, when we meet our counterpart committee, we normally have a follow-up meeting with the executive in terms of understanding their reason for not bringing some of these regulations, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, and then jointly also the other activities, jointly with the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget, the committee considered the Public Finance Management National Government Amendment Regulation 2019. A public hearing was held on 23rd of October 2019. Consideration of and then another one is consideration of the Public Finance Parliamentary Catering Fund Regulation 2019 and consideration and give the committee recommendation on Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fishery on the various crops regulation, now horticulture crops, pyrethrum, nuts and oil, and tea industry. And then pyrethrum regulation and crops, nuts and oils regulation 2019. Madam Speaker, I also wish to thank the Secretariat for being diligent in terms of making us understand regulation and way forward, and in terms of the gaps that they identify at any given time in terms of our decision way forward. Madam Speaker, I wish to thank them for doing a great job and working with the committee in terms of making better regulation and giving comments, Madam Speaker. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Chair. That brings us to the end of statements under Standing Order 51(1)B. The last statement is pursuant to Standing Order 52(1). There is a point of order from Senator Zani. What's your point of order?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It was both a point of order, and I was just requesting for time just to make brief comments after that statement, if I may. Can I proceed? Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to commend the work that has been done by the County Public Accounts and Investment Committee. It's one of...
where the County Public Accounts Committee, we deferred because the chair was not here.
Also, that was not that statement from them.
She was handling the Committee on Delegated Legislation.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. Because there's just something interesting, and maybe also from Delegated Committee, they might just tell us, as a part of the follow-up from that report, especially when we went to Kitui and we had engagement with Machakos and Makueni, and there was meant to have been a follow-up meeting with these counties, which was meant to have been done in the public, in the county assemblies. I don't know whether that was something that was followed up by this committee or it was to be followed up by another committee. It would be interesting to just know where that process finally took us. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Chair.
Madam Speaker, in terms of delegated legislation, what we normally do is just do a capacity building for the county assemblies and then discuss our findings with the executive. So depending on the finding, then let me give you an example of the Kisii County. they had so many pending regulations that the acts that were passed by county assemblies, and they never produced a regulation for them. And after we had a session with them, they felt that they missed an opportunity to make those regulations and legalize some of the activities of the county. So after, when we have, we have to understand first what is the county assembly doing. And then after that, once we identify the gaps and challenges the committee have, and then we speak to the executive. I was at the point when we are speaking to both, we handle issues and address them. And part of the time when we are handling the issues from the committee, what we normally do is the chair of that committee becomes even part of our sitting when we are sitting with the executive. That way, at least he knows that his rights, because this is one of the committees that is least understood by most of the county assembly, I'm sorry to say. But now, after now, we speak to them and make them understand that they are such a powerful committee, and that they can, they don't need a sector, and they can cover, it's a cross-board issue. Then, in fact, by the time we leave each of those county assemblies and executive, the executive feels that they have lost an opportunity to make some of the things that they were doing with no legal basis. Now they have an opportunity to make it right. So that is what our committee has been doing. First, we start with the county assemblies, and then we go to together with the chair of that committee, we sit with the executive. So that in front of the chair of that committee, they know that what is their issues and what is their gap. And that we also tell them that the chair of the delegated legislation can summon any CC regarding any regulation that affected their respective sectors. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't know whether I have answered your question, Madam. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's done. Yes, give her the microphone.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted, there's something else that I needed to add, and if you give me an opportunity to add, I can.
1 minute.
The other issue around this committee is sometimes the executive sometimes feels, they don't want to meet us for some reason. They feel that if they're in front of the senators, there's an issue that they can come out. And so there are some few counties where we were not able to meet the executive because of the fear that we might raise issues with them. So those are also some of the other things that going forward we might need to do some civic education in terms of the role of this committee. We are not like CPAC that ask them to account for something, so they have absolutely no reason to fear us for anything. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Chair. Although they should not fear also coming to account. Yeah, okay, yeah. The next statement is pursuant to Standing Order number 52-1 from the leader, Majority Leader, to issue a statement on the business of the Senate for the week commencing Tuesday, 26 November 2019. I'm informed a member of the House Business Committee, Senator Gibiru, is here.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 52-1, I hereby present to the Senate the business of the House for the week commencing Tuesday, 26 November 2019. On Tuesday, 26 November 2019, the Senate Business Committee will meet to schedule the business of the Senate for the week, subject to further directions by the committee. The Senate will consider bills due for second reading and those of the committee of the whole stage. The Senate will also continue with the consideration of business that will not be concluded in today's order paper. Madam Speaker, I continue to urge senators to be available in the chamber to prosecute their business. In the same spirit, I urge committee chairpersons to expedite consideration of business still pending in the committees. Madam Speaker, I take this opportunity to laud chairpersons of select committees who have submitted quarterly reports to the House. Pursuant to Standing Order 51(1)B, relating to activities of the committees, including consideration of bills, statements, petitions, and inquiries undertaken. These quarterly reports are an accountability mechanism in the standing orders, which guarantees that matters brought for action by the Senate and referred to select committees are given the necessary attention. I urge the remaining committee chairpersons to submit their reports pursuant to the said standing orders. Madam Speaker, in the next few days, the House will come to the end of the third session in line with the calendar of the Senate. The House, however, still has a number of bills at second reading and at committee of the whole stage. Additionally, there are motions and petitions pending for consideration. I therefore urge senators to give the whips the necessary support and avail themselves in the chamber so as to dispose of all business that is still pending in the Senate before proceeding to the recess. I thank you, Madam Speaker, and hereby lay the statement on the table of the Senate. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator. That brings us to the end of the statement time. Just gone very far today because of the important discussions that we had around most of the statements. Next order.
Order number 8, motion, report of the 64th Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference.
Senator, the senator who was contributing at the time was Senator Ledama Olekina. He had 5 minutes, but because he's absent, then he forgoes his chance. Next contributor will be Senator Zani Agnes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to contribute to the 64th Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference CPC meeting that was held in Kampala. And the theme for this particular conference was adaptation, engagement, and evolution of parliaments in a rapidly changing environment. And Madam Speaker, this is the topic the world over. Everybody within various parliaments, within various civil societies, people are talking about representation, democracy, and what it takes for parliamentarians to be able to come to the table, to come to their parliaments, and effectively represent their people. In fact, Madam Speaker, the key buzzword now that goes around is whether and to what extent these parliamentarians actually effectively represent these specific groups, and the whole issue of trust of these same parliamentarians, of the issues in sync with the parliamentarians that are given out, and whether these are doing a very good job at it. And Madam Speaker, even with that, and the report is very clear, there are other very specific processes that are very, very key, which were covered in this particular conference. One of these, which is very, very key, is mentoring of the parliamentarians themselves. The realization that many parliamentarians probably start the job without a specific process to ensure that they have been mentored and they're able to engage in specific topics and specific issues that are very, very critical so that they can actually remain in sync with the issues of the day. It's interesting to note that this delegation was very highly skewed towards members of the National Assembly. If I looked at the membership of the delegation, I find that probably Senator Faki alone was the only member who came from the Senate, and he aptly represented us, and I'm happy he's brought up this report. Quite a number of many issues came out, especially on the women agenda, which is very, very critical in this country. Madam Speaker, as you might know, we've had a transition and transaction where we have tried over time to ensure, for example, that the no more than the 2/3 agenda rule is actually passed.
Order. Senator Faria, are you intervening or it was? What's your point of
Madam
order?
Speaker, I just wanted the point of information.
Yes, you want to inform Senator Zane?
Yes, I'd like to be informed by Senator Faria.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was supposed to be part of that delegation together with Senator Faki, but unfortunately, when we were supposed to travel on Saturday, my mother-in-law got sick on Thursday, and she was in ICU, so I couldn't travel, so that is why he was the only person. Thank you.
That's good information.
Thank you for that information. I think it brings it clearly in the light so that we know that this skewed balance, we can't talk about it too much because we'd be complaining and saying we didn't have a representation even from the Senate, from the women of the Senate, the lady legislators. Because if you look at this topic, you know, they're talking about mentorship, talking about issues like, for example, in one of their sessions, session 4, combating bullying and harassment within parliaments. And we know, for example, from the International Parliamentary Union, Interparliamentary Union, various reports have come about legislators who are just starting on and really being able to get to a point where they can really be able to execute their business. Madam Speaker, it's very encouraging to know that at this conference, we had the Speaker, Madam Kadaga of Uganda, who is one of the leaders who are well recognized, especially within the African context in terms of being a Speaker of a parliament in an African country and doing very, very well in the role that she plays. So some of the issues that were discussed are probably issues that not only were relevant at that particular conference, but there are issues, and I'm happy this report has come to the Senate because it allows us to debate and begin to look at our own systems and to look at our own experiences and ask ourselves whether some of these issues that have been prosecuted there, whether they have been prosecuted or continue to be prosecuted even here. In one of the sessions, I think this is in session 3, they dealt with training, induction, and capacity building for female legislators. And this was to ensure that the members of parliament are ready for the roles that they're going to play, especially in leadership. Another issue that was very key was invest continuously and strategically focus on mentoring women legislators. I mentioned that. But very specifically also bringing out the whole issue of legal empowerment of women and women with disabilities. We have champions in this Senate who are members representing PWDs who have done extremely good work. Senator Musuruve, who is currently here, and Senator Mwaura. And they have talked about the issues of disabilities. They have talked and represented the various groups very aptly. And these are issues that came up at this conference and issues that are very, very relevant because we know when it comes to contribution, everybody should be given a chance and space to make those contributions. Another key point was also to empower women as effective legislators, including those from minority groups, and ensure political environments are free from gender-based discrimination for democratic governance. Madam Speaker, we've just finished the ICPD conference here in Nairobi, and these matters again were prosecuted. rights for the various categories, looking at minorities, looking at girls and women, looking at ensuring that they can actually go through an educational cycle, looking to ensure that they can actually maximally contribute. Madam Speaker, when it comes to the issue of development especially, and we begin to look at the whole correlation between gender inequality and development, everybody says that this is so critical that you cannot have only half of the team playing and expect to maximally even score for yourselves. So I'm happy that this was an issue that was thoroughly discussed, and I know even in the Kenyan Parliament, a lot of effort has been done to ensure that these minority groups also get represented. But I think most of what we say as well about the minority groups, and I think it was Senator who a few minutes ago is talking on behalf of the Maasai on a very important issue that actually touches on the ecosystem of these communities and how they can survive. Some of these points would not be well articulated if we didn't have representation from these specific groups really outlining what issues these are and that they need to be taken onto the fore. And then last, they also talked about the whole need to increase knowledge and skills in the performance of duties. They also put this in the area of capacity building. One of the interesting sessions they have, and I think this session usually surprises very many people, is combating bullying and harassment within Parliament. And not enough is spoken about this. I was reading the IPU report where they touched on this, and I think the statistics is very, very high. I think out of 4 women, they were talking about at least 2 are sometimes harassed even within the setup of Parliament. They did not go to explain the level of that harassment, but it is not. But sometimes it is surprising because even if you look at it from a gender-based perspective and in terms of violence towards women, for example, the statistics coming from the UK is showing at least in every 4 women, 3 are likely to be abused, and that represents and comes back again into the society and is seen from that perspective. So I think these are issues because if these women are meant to come up to be leaders who can be listened to, who can be heard, who can articulate various issues for their communities, then they need to be able to be given the ability to be well empowered so that they can actually be able to articulate the various issues that they come across at the various times in which they make their various presentations. So again, Madam Speaker, as I come to the end of my presentation, in this particular conference, there were very many different groups, workshops, the various issues that are very, very key, again, coming onto the fore, the issue of climate change and the need to have this mainstreamed in all ministry plans, with Parliament requiring a certificate of compliance before budgets are approved. The issue of the role of parliamentarians in ensuring cohesive lawmaking and budgetary oversight on climate-related policy. Madam Speaker, when the issue of climate change came up some years back, it seemed like a far-off issue. But now more and more people are realizing that we live in only one earth, and if the issue of climate change is not appropriately addressed, we're going to have a problem. We are seeing that now. We are seeing weather patterns, for example, that did not exist some time back coming to the fore. So these various workshops were able to discuss this. The issue of ICT also came up in some of these discussions. Madam Speaker, this was a very comprehensive conference that really touched on the various issues, and I'm happy that we were represented. And I hope that some of the deliberations that are very key in this conference that come from this report can actually be put forth and applied to make parliaments better, not just across Kenya, across Africa, and across the world. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Pokisha Samuel Losuron.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I would like to support this report on the delegation to the 64th Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference held in Kampala. Madam Speaker, I happen to be a member of the Executive Committee of our own branch of CPA. And Madam Speaker, I do appreciate the fact that the CPA is an association organization of members of Parliament from the Commonwealth regions. And in this regard, Madam Speaker, you know that we have the chair of the African region being the Speaker of the National Assembly of Kenya. And therefore, we hold very senior positions in the CPA. The conference, as has been said already, and I appreciate Senator Faki for such a report, for doing such a good job, having gone there alone, as we heard. Madam Speaker, we appreciate that this report is very well done. The report shows the activities and events as they happened. I'd like to highlight just a few, Madam Speaker. The first I would like to say is to encourage members of the Senate to join the membership of the CPA individually. It has great benefits, Madam Speaker, to be a member of the CPA. Most likely, it's still affordable to be a life member of the CPA. It's when you go to another CPA country, you're given very good reception treatment for being a member of the CPA. One of the things that I find interesting is the focus on the young and the changing nature of our parliaments, and especially that more young people are getting elected to parliament, and the fact that a lot of people, the number of people who exit and come in is very rapid as well, Madam Speaker. And so the emphasis is on inducting members of parliament well. The emphasis is on capacity building, and emphasis is on equipping the senators and the members of parliament in their work to make them much better to deal with the changing world. And Mr. Speaker, as we have noticed, this Senate is quite ahead in a number of ways. One, in the sense in which we have adopted ICT and technology in our communication, in the way that we conduct our businesses. We no longer have papers. We have gone paperless. These are some of the things that the conference was advocating. The conference also advocating, Mr. Speaker, that we become extremely close to the changing world in terms of climate change. And Madam Speaker, Kenya is experiencing a lot of that today. In areas where hitherto there has been no rain, you can hear about rains pounding, we can hear about floods, and it means, Madam Speaker, we must in reality appreciate the fact that the climate change is here with us. And so this conference was saying, apart from the changing nature of the Commonwealth, the changing nature of parliaments, there is also the nature of climate change. And we must pay close attention to these areas. Madam Speaker, we get taken by surprise. When last week, or this week, when we were looking at the possibilities that we should have collected the water of these floods and stored them somewhere. But Speaker, in parts of this country, especially in the northern parts of this country where they don't get rain, there was excess rain this year, and we should have known as a matter of policy, Madam Speaker, that we could have developed storages for all these floods, all these runoffs, so that this part of our country can begin to use that water thereafter. Madam Speaker, I just wanted to highlight the fact that every conference that you attend these days, they will speak to you about innovation, how we have done before, how we carried out the activities of Parliament before, and how we do it now. We should be focusing on how to innovative ways of representing our people, including, Madam Speaker, the fact that we should now be at the level where I should be having video conferencing from my office at this point in age, in this day and age, Madam Speaker, with my constituents. It should be possible now to connect, Madam Speaker, so I don't have to be, moving back and forth. If they have issues, we should be able to have those. That's technology. We are being encouraged to be innovative to that extent, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think because the conference was held in Africa, it's a great honor that we have, the conference was held in Kampala, and as I see the roles and the workshops which were done, Madam Speaker, they were able to meet some of the questions that we raise normally, the role of Parliament in the doctrine of separation of powers. Africa needed that, Madam Speaker. We need to understand, Madam Speaker, if you look at our own devolution, separation of powers, you find, Mr. Speaker, that, I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, you'll find that, that the executive wants to rule over the legislature. They want to impose themselves on the legislature, wanting to know whether they can pass this or that, pushing. And even here at the national level, Madam Speaker. So we need to have a clear separation of powers. Where we belong, because we account for each other, we hold each other to account, and so on. Madam Speaker, the great thing about the Commonwealth, the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association conferences, is that we have a role all the way to the international level, including one Kenyan who represents us in the executive committee at the international level. So we are well represented in this organization, and we could actually benefit by publishing, by attending the seminars, and by also the fellowships that they have, Madam Speaker, so that we can be very serious and we can be very active members. This Senate requires to be active in the activities of the Commonwealth, and I hope that, Madam Speaker, much as the conference gives us all this, we must be practical about how we organize ourselves into a Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, especially in the Senate, by being members, so that we can benefit from such conferences. I thank you and I support. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. There being no other member wishing to contribute, Honorable Senators, according to Standing Order 92B, we were expecting the Senator Fagi to be here to respond. I don't see anybody whom he has left delegated to. So for that reason, 92B applies that the Senator who has moved a substantive motion has, on conclusion of the debate and before the question is put, a right of reply, and may delegate that right to another member to reply in his state. And since there is nobody who has been given, it means that he forfeits the right of reply. And I've looked at this, and it does not affect counties, so I'll proceed to put the question. Honorable Senators, I now put the question that the Senate notes the report of the Parliament of Kenya delegation to the 64th Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference held in Kampala, Uganda from 22nd to 29th September 2019. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, motion, report of the third statutory meeting of the Committee on Economic Development, Regional Integration and Natural Resources of the Forum of Parliaments of the International Conference of the Great Lakes Region.
Senator Samuel Pokisho.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this House notes the report of the third statutory meeting of the Committee on Economic Development, Regional Integration and Natural Resources of the Forum of Parliaments of the International Conference on the Great Lakes Region, FPICGLR, held in Bujumbura, Burundi, from the 13th to 14th March 2019, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 21st May 2019. Madam Speaker, a Forum of Parliaments of Member States, ICGFP, ICGLR, is an interparliamentary organization of 12 parliaments of member states of the International Conference on the Great Lakes region. The third statutory meeting of the Committee on Economic Development, Regional Integration, and Natural Resources of this organization, Madam Speaker, took place on the 13th, 14th of March this year at the Best Outlook Hotel in Bujumbura, Burundi. Madam Speaker, 6 members of the committee were in attendance from the Republic of Kenya, Republic of Zambia, Republic of Central African Republic, and the Republic of Congo, and host country, the Republic of Burundi. May I, Madam Speaker, just highlight some of the major events outside of the meeting. Madam Speaker, one was the committee was taken on a visit of the Gakara Rare Earth Project. Rare earth is a mineral, Madam Speaker. And we went to see what a modern factory can be that gets soil and develops it into something that can be exported. And I'm not going to dwell much on the nature of the rare earth, Madam Speaker. We had presentations from the first statutory, this was the third, so we had presentations from the first statutory meeting, which was an update, Madam Speaker. The presentation focused on sustainable development goals of the member states of ICGLR. From the presentations, it emerged that though no country is on track towards activities of SDGs, most developing countries have experienced significant progress towards ending extreme poverty in all forms, including income poverty, undernourishment, access to health and education services, and access to basic infrastructure. Further, countries experiencing conflict have experienced some of the sharpest reversal, particularly towards achieving Goal 1, which is no poverty, and Goal 2, which is no hunger. The meeting then shared country discussions and experiences on the steps they had taken to achieve the SDGs and the challenges faced as outlined in this report. We also had a presentation from the proceedings of the second statutory meeting. The committee explored the various agreements initiated by ICGLR towards natural resource management as outlined in this report. The major agreements, Madam Speaker, were the Pact on Security, Stability and Development in the Great Lakes region, signed in Nairobi, Kenya on the 15th December 2006. The other one is the Article 9, Protocol Against the Illegal Exploitation of Natural Resources. Third one is a Regional Initiative on Natural Resources, which is RINR. There was also a presentation on research findings on the status of implementation of the regional economic integration in the member states of ICGLR. Regional economic integration refers to the efforts to promote free and fair trade on regional basis. REI, especially regional trade agreements, RTAs, have been on the increase in the last 2 or so decades. REI is beneficial to all countries in the following ways. 1, leads to increased product choices, productivity, and higher living standards. 2, offers great opportunities to learn from each other's experience on common issues such as education and migration. 3, enables countries to coordinate a common approach to tax incentives. 4, allows goods, services, and people to flow seamlessly across borders to reduce costs and lower prices, and helps farms become competitive enough to link to the value chains. And 5, trade creations as trade agreements promote free trade. The committee, in their discussions, reviewed some of the measures the individual member states have taken to implement REI. Madam Speaker, there was a presentation on research finding on the effects of globalization, and I think we all know that this is very important today. The effects of globalization on the member states of ICGLR. The committee discussed the effects, this as follows. 1, to increase the level of global economic integration, GEI, of their economies by increasing international trade and FDI flows, i.e. level of investment and economic growth in respective countries and region. 2, political pressures that global firms bring to bear on regional economies, communities, RECs, to lower barriers on intra-regional activity. 3, there's something called crony capitalism. 4, economic changes of the 20th century that have led to shift in industrialized countries from manufacturing to services and innovative technologies. 5, REC governments will pool their policies to reassert their sovereignty and gain or regain policy autonomy vis-a-vis global market. Regionalization, that's number 6, in the face of globalization, can enhance member states' policy stability and credibility only if member states can know how to address globalization's adverse effects. 7, in a world where goods of all kinds appear to move more effortlessly across borders, regionalism must address the social dimensions of markets and environmental dangers of unregulated competitions, and will, in practice, number 8, Madam Speaker, in practice, globalization, regionalization tend to be mutually reinforcing, especially insofar as regionalization stimulates internal competition brought about by globalization. Madam Speaker, this was about the Economic Committee, so you'll see a lot of that. A lot of it is jargon from that field. I want to conclude, Madam Speaker, by saying I urge the Senate to note this report and follow up on the implementation of the agreements initiated by ICGLR towards natural resource management and regional economic integration, including the role of parliaments or parliamentarians in promoting REI through the following, Madam Speaker, as I end: strengthening and accelerating economic integration and development. 2, spreading a culture of human rights and gender equality. And 3, encouraging good governance. Madam Speaker, I beg to move and request Mary Senator to second. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mary Senator.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second the report of the 3rd statutory meeting of the Committee on Economic Development, Regional Integration and Natural Resources of the Forum of FPICGLR, which was held in Bujumbura. And I want to congratulate Senator Samuel Pogisio and the delegation that went for this forum, and a very good report that they have been able to bring to this House. And I too also urge members to try to note and also follow up on implementations of this report. Madam Speaker, of great interest is the agreements on activities and events that were discussed on issues to do with mining minerals and on issues to do with natural resources. As you know, Madam Speaker, this is a country that is having a lot of good natural resources that should be able to be conserved well for the benefit of the citizens of this country. Madam Speaker, the issue of education also, and lessons learned on agreements on immigrations, those are things that we need to really look at as parliamentarians. The issue of good governance also is of great interest to this House, and therefore, Madam Speaker, I second the report.
Honorable Senators, I would now like to propose the question that this House notes the report on the third statutory meeting of the Committee on Economic Development, Regional Integration and Natural Resources of the Forum of Parliaments of the International Conference of the Great Lakes Region, FPICGLR, held in Bujumbura, Burundi, from 13th to 14th March 2019, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 21st May 2019. Senator Zani Agnes Philomena.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me start by congratulating Senator Pogisho for having attended this particular meeting. And this was a delegation to the third statutory meeting of the Committee on Economic Development, Regional Integration and Natural Resources of the Forum of Parliaments of Member States of the International Conference on the Great Lakes Region. Right from the onset, not only were there theoretical aspects that were covered in this particular session, but very specific deliverables that came from various activities. I note, Madam Speaker, that even before the main conference started, that this delegation went to view a particular mineral processing place where they were processing rare earth. And from that experience, Madam Speaker, right from the onset, they were able to pick up some of the issues that are very, very key and very, very pertinent. Madam Speaker, if you look through the membership of the Great Lakes, most of the issues are very, very much the same. If you look at the pattern that they have taken in addressing most of the issues, especially to do with SDGs, it's more or less the same. If you're talking about conflict in the region, if you talk about lack of economic progress, they have more or less the same experience. This meeting was meant to have at least about 12 members, but unfortunately it happened near the time when we had the catastrophic accident of the Ethiopian Airlines, and therefore only 6 member states were able to come. And Madam Speaker, it is very commendable that from the 6 members, one of those, our very own Senator Bogisho, they were able to work through and come up with very, very good recommendations and good ideas that when implemented can actually put these countries at another level. In fact, one of their recommendations, I think, which I found very, very key, or one of the observations that they put, which was very, very key, is that we are not short of ideas. Enough legislation has been put on the table, enough policies have been put on the table, but the problem is implementation of these specific documents that have been put across the board that should actually help us to take us to the next level where we should be able to address these particular natural resources. And when it comes to challenges that came, especially from the excursion to Gakara Rare Earth project, various issues that come up are very, very critical in the way the whole analysis is made in terms of how even the whole process of identifying these problems and being able to bring them to the fore becomes very, very key. One of the issues which comes out very, very clearly from the report is the whole issue of the cost of the minerals, just because, for example, in this particular project, they're not able to separate the concentrate into its 17 elements. If they were able to do this, it would be valued at USD 10,000 per ton. But because they're not able to do this, they sell at 3,000 per ton, Madam Speaker. And this seems to be the fate, that at the end of the day, for many of the countries, we get the minerals, but we are not able to value add onto those particular minerals. We're not able to do something concrete to them to enable the value for this to go up. And this is really a wake-up call, Madam Speaker. You're talking about profit that is cut almost by a third, because if this rare earth would be able to, if they were able to separate the concentrate into the 17 elements, the value would be 3 times more. That means other economies are coming in, Madam Speaker, in between. They're coming in and they're able then to do this processing and gain 2/3 more than where the actual natural resource bequeathed in the first place. which is really a sad state of affairs, Madam Speaker, and it brings to the fore the various key issues that are problematic in these countries: very low economies, very low technology, issues of legislation that haven't been addressed appropriately, and we find it becomes a very, very big problem. And if you look at, for example, rare earth elements that were there at Gakara Rare Earth Project, this is the element that is used for making various devices such as mobile phones, renewable, green technologies, and electronic cars, among others. So Burundi would be such a rich country if they'd be able to sell this rare earth at the price at which, if they were able to a value add onto it, they'd be able to change even the fortunes of that country. They'd be able to change the path of development. They'd be able to address the various key issues that are very, very key. Another issue which is very, very critical, again, has just to do with the mechanisms in terms of export for the various products. And the case that is cited here is about how it would be better if they were able to do the export through a particular border. However, Tanzanian authorities at the point require the bags of concentrate to be unsealed before authorizing exportation, risking contamination and other interferences, thus making Kenya a more viable route. So when these ones are exported, it is more expensive. It is more expensive if they export. The rare earth minerals are exported through Mombasa, Kenya, which is more expensive than exporting through Tanzania. If they exported through Mombasa, it would be cheaper. It's more expensive to do it through Tanzania, and they have the problem that in Tanzania, then the whole examination process really creates a situation which includes risking of contamination of the product. So here we are with a very viable project, and I'm happy the members were able to see. And it must have also invoked very many issues, even the issues of how then do you take back this earth after it's been dilapidated through excavation, for example. Are there policies in place to ensure that happens within the particular countries? And that would be a matter of the various legislation. Another session which was very key was the issue of Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, and of course all these goals are very familiar now: no poverty, zero hunger, affordability. A very good statistic is given in this report, where the specific ICGLR member states actually were able to look for a way of mapping their own positioning of the various countries across states who total 156. They were able to look at where they are in terms of partnership for the goals and their positioning. And it would be interesting to hear maybe further from Senator Pogisho what he felt about this, because out of the 156, there's none of these countries that were present, that is Angola, Burundi, CAR, Congo, DRC, Kenya, Rwanda, South Sudan, Tanzania, Uganda, and Tanzania. And none of them is within any of the hundreds. I think the highest that is starting closest is, Kenya. I see Kenya at 119. And then going down the list, Angola at 144. This report is very, very honest. As you go forward, it talks about the various issues and the various problems. But I think, Madam Speaker, we need to get to a point where we need to find where is the turnabout. Because we know these countries in Africa are the ones that have been immensely blessed with natural resources. If they're able to utilize their natural resources very well, then half the problems will not be there. We know about Nigeria, for example, that has suffered the issue of the oil casts. You know, countries where you have PhD, postdoctorals working without employment, and yet you have the facilities right there in the country, the resources right there in the country that could completely transform in terms of infrastructure. Because what are we talking about when we're talking about these development goals? When we're talking about education, when we're talking about poverty, it's about money, it's about income. It's just about transformation from income. And this transformation from income can actually come from the resources that come from this country. Zero hunger. These are the same countries that have very high levels of people who are very hungry, gender equality, matters of equality and equity and quality of education, decent work. economic growth, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. It's the same thing over and over again. And Madam Speaker, more and more now we are hearing our young people in this country speaking, and the desperation that they are in, talking about lack of employment, thinking about the future, where do we go to from here, how do we move to the second point. Madam Speaker, clearly there seems to be a disconnect in the way we look at our development agenda. And we can go back in the history of this country and even look at economic development and look, for example, at the time when we had the power team, the dream team, and look at how did they do it that time? And are we able to go back there and look to see where we have economists, we have entrepreneurs, we have analysts, we have actuaries, we have so many people. We can go back and see where is the problem and how can that problem be fixed once and for all so that we can actually be able to move away from that. And I just want to focus a little bit about the country discussions and experiences, because these were shared. And we had experiences from Burundi, we have experiences from Kenya, we have experience. I just want to touch on the Kenyan one, where one of the issues that came out is that they said from experiences from Kenya regarding the same issues and regarding DSGs, that there's lack of integration of the 4 key areas of manufacturing, food security, nutrition, universal health coverage, and affordable housing, which is attached to the SDGs. And this is threatening the success of implementation of this particular goal. The key word is lack of integration. Every time you listen and you look at this report and you read from the various countries, the issues of coordination, the issues of integration, the issues of all pulling from one point. Madam Speaker, and it's key to know that over time we've had, for example, interministerial efforts and trying to find a way to put all the players on the table so we find out where these gaps are. We need to be able to identify where these gaps are. That will enable us to be able to identify how to move forward. And we need then to be able to move with the relevant synergy. Madam Speaker, Republic of Zambia, the budgeting system should incorporate implementation of the SDGs. I think is very, very ingenious, because I suspect that's where we've gone wrong with the SDGs, that we have great SDGs, but some of these have not been budgeted for. So they're putting in there a plug system where the budgeting system must implement for the development of these particular goals. And then they come up and they say very innovatively, pick one goal and commit to its achievement, as this will have ripple effects on the others. So maybe the approach is wrong. Out of all these 17 SDGs, we are maybe trying too many in a rampant way, moving in one direction and the other direction. We need to be able to have some sort of systemacy, maybe have some sort of order. I think what they're saying is quite innovative. Then the Republic of Congo, they tie this with good governance. And this is true. Without good governance, most of these goals cannot be achieved. The consultant also had something very interesting to add there. He says there's a tendency in African countries to produce policies and documents that are never implemented, and this extends to the approach of the SDGs. So this is a highlight, again, in terms of what we need to do. The other topic that was very, very interesting and very, very helpful that was talked about in this particular meeting is the whole idea of the whole issue of natural resources. Some of these issues I mentioned as I made that introduction bit in terms of what they went to see at the particular site at the Gakara Rare Earth Project, and some of the issues that came as a result of that. But some of the issues that are coming out, which are very, very key, for example, is a pact on security, stability, development in the Great Lakes region, which are very, very key. Some of these are to ensure that there's a harmonized national legislation, as well as principles of transparency, responsibility, equity, and respect for environment and human settlements. And I think this is where also we found a gap. We have tried, I think, in our own way within the various committees, coming up with various legislations that over time can be implemented. We have not made progress in many of these laws, and we still have to fight faster, harder, and more probably prudently to ensure that communities, for example, are able to exploit their resources and benefit from them. To put in place a regional certification, that's another recommendation, to put in place a regional certification mechanism for the exploitation, monitoring, and verification of natural resources within the Great Lakes region. Madam Speaker, this cannot be overemphasized. And I think this approach, that if we approach it from a regional certification mechanism rather than at a country level, this might be able to help. I know when we were working on the Natural Resources Benefit Sharing Bill and we had the committees travel to the different countries, one of the issues that we were told is that very few countries try to legislate on natural resources because there's a lot of complexity in terms of the certification and how to go about it, and it's such vast areas of natural resources, and how do you bring them all together so that you can actually be able to assess them. And I think this really just points us to maybe this is the solution, going across it the regional way, identifying what the problems might be. Madam Speaker, am I about to run out of time?
Yes.
How many minutes more?
You have 5 seconds. But
5
I'll give
seconds.
you 1 more minute.
Thank you, Madam. The 5 seconds have ended immediately. Thank you. So the issue of natural resources is so passionate, and I think so. What this conference and what this report brings to the fore is just sort of that disconnect that is there. We have all these SDGs and very innovative ways of how to finally come with them to put a point. And then lastly, they actually make a protocol against the illegal exploitation of natural resources, and the member states agree to put in place regional rules and mechanisms for combating the illegal exploitation of natural resources. Fantastic. Agenda put into place, just pulling together. I don't know when this meeting is going to take place. I suggest at that one, they do proper evaluation, proper areas of why it has not been successful, and forge a way forward. Maybe at a regional level, we might be able to overcome some of the stumbling blocks that we've been caught up with at the national level. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. We could see the passion and the knowledge that you have around this mineral resources. Thank you. Senator Haji Faria Ali.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me opportunity to speak to this matter. I also wish to thank Senator Pogisho for giving a comprehensive report. And sometimes it's very difficult to speak on an issue when you have such a, eloquent and, someone who provides leadership on how they articulate their issues. Then you feel like if you speak after them, you feel like all the points have been exhausted. So you just need to just fill in the gaps. Madam Speaker, in terms of this Great Lakes region, there's a lot of resources. And there is a lot of resources in terms of minerals, in terms of opportunity, in terms of rains, in terms of what it is able to produce, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, due to conflicts, corruption, and other issues, this region does not live to the standard of meeting the goals for SDGs. Due to corruption, they still, and part of the conflict that is created is because of, fighting for resources. Madam Speaker, and some of these places have no democracy, so maybe that is part of the problem. Other than Rwanda, I don't see, and Kenya, of course, we are a bigger economy here and all that, but all these resources, compared to the way you can move from being poor country to, very sustainable economies, there is a bit of a gap, Madam Speaker. And unfortunately, our leaders are not able to connect sometimes. Most of our leaders, let me say, because some of them are trying. The fact that industrialization, in terms of, finished goods, as opposed to exporting raw materials, the prices, quadrupled. And not only that, when you have your industries within the country that is doing the adding value to the finished goods, then you create employment. And once you create employment, there is money circulating within the economy that is making a difference for everyone who is involved, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in terms of like now, for example, the oil-rich countries within this region and all that, if we do not take advantage of the resources we have right now, very soon, with the way the innovation is going ahead in the world, We will have aeroplanes just driven by just batteries that are rechargeable, or a car driven by a battery that is rechargeable. Then the oil in Africa that has become what they call black diamond, is rendered useless because nobody will use it anymore. So before we reach there, we need to make sure as a country within this region to ensure that there is maximum, the money is not, pilfered, so that the resources that we have is used to ensure that we have enough, we develop our economy. Look at the time when Kibaki was the president, we had, a team of experts who were, they were called Dream Team at that time, who are expert in economic, the drivers of economic growth, and who are guiding the president accordingly to ensure that that the country grows in tandem. And I think Kenya during that time has grown, Madam Speaker, in terms of revenue and other things. We might need to bring that back, Madam Speaker, even if it does, even if it means people, I'm sure there are very many Kenyans who are economists who want to give their advice for free at no charges because they care about this country, who now take the agenda of this country to the next level, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, look at, for example, the other day I was reading a report that said there is around 6 trillion of Kenyan resources that is locked in international, bank accounts. And my thinking was, could this be part of the problem that we have in terms of the money we owe internationally is also 6 trillion? In my head, I was trying to link the two, and I'm wondering, is this the real problem we have? So, Madam Speaker, as a country, unless we address the problem of corruption that is systemic in all the economies of these Great Lake regions, I think we are not moving to the next level. And it is high time we told each other the truth in terms of how we can safeguard our resources so that the money we get is also directed to service delivery to our people. Look at it this way, Madam Speaker. There is a lot of people who fall back. They have moved out of poverty and they were at middle class level. And because of one person in their family who got, chronic illness, can take the whole family back to poverty and living below the poverty line, Madam Speaker. So if we had fixed the problem in our health, Madam Speaker, look at the amount of resources Kenyans are spending to go to India to deal with cancer and other ailments, Madam Speaker. If we were able to save that kind of money within our borders, Madam Speaker, then we would be talking about being at a different level. Madam Speaker, look at the world in terms of even climate change, Madam Speaker. And I'm glad that part of the discussion of this was about climate change, Madam Speaker. In another report I was reading, it said that we have around 18 months before, the world heat is raised unless we do something about it. Madam Speaker, there is a lot of politics around in terms of saving environment and in terms of people grabbing land and, Madam Speaker, people taking, innocent buyers being duped to buy, government land, and then later on again, these were people who had independence economically. And they used their money to buy that land, for example, and they are taken back to poverty. Madam Speaker, unless we tell each other the truth, Madam Speaker, the issue around poverty and, meeting the SDG goals will just be remaining a dream, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, like, for example, even the Western world and the bigger economies have already exhausted their natural resources. The only thing that is keeping their economies afloat, Madam Speaker, is money from Africa, Madam Speaker. Because let's say, like they say, the Kenyan tea is used by other countries to blend their tea so that it has a nice flavor, or even our coffee, Madam Speaker. What is stopping us from having a final product that is marketed as a Kenyan product, Madam Speaker? There's a lot of issues that needs to be addressed as a country and as a region, Madam Speaker, that would have made a lot of difference on the people who live within the Great Lake region, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, and then the other, finally, what I wanted to comment around is about connection between industrialization and employment. Madam Speaker, this is a region that has an upsurge of youth. We're told the youthful population is around 70%. And unless we use the energy of this block, because this can become a very good market for people who are producing. And then they can become also, because Kenyans, for example, other than, I think, Rwanda that is recovering and Burundi that is permanently on conflict, most of the other countries have, access to education, access to enabling their youth, collecting them together and making them much more innovative so that they can take our economy to the next level. Madam Speaker, I think Rwanda is getting there. But in terms of even Rwanda, how sustainable is that? Madam Speaker, as a country and as a region, unless we remove the I mentality and we have the we mentality as nations, then, Madam Speaker, these economies will crumple in our faces, Madam Speaker. And I think this is a challenge we need to give each other. And I think the legislative arm of government has tried in terms of putting a lot of legislation in place. We need the goodwill to ensure that those legislations are implemented by those who use taxpayers' money, who are custodians of our institutions. I mean, those who are in charge of prosecutorial or any other, or investigation or audits, they need to come out so that this dragon called corruption is tamed before the inequality between within our citizens is minimized, so that our development agenda can move to the next level. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Faria. Having no other person wishing to contribute, I will now call on the mover to reply. Senator Bokisho.
Madam Speaker, in replying, let me just take the opportunity, Madam Speaker, to thank the members who have contributed. I want to thank the members of our delegation and our role in the FP-ICGLR. Madam Speaker, Kenya is a leader in that role. And we hope that as you read the report and scrutinize the report, Madam Speaker, I hope that solutions can come from this House, suggestions that to be taken back to the region. And that's the whole purpose, Madam Speaker, of laying reports, so that we can find solutions to some of these problems. This is a region, Madam Speaker, as you know, which could have been, which would probably be the center of conflicts in the continent of Africa. And so they have a lot of natural, virgin lands, natural resources. Most of the diamonds and golds and so on of this world come from this region, but you cannot reach those regions because of conflicts. And so, Madam Speaker, I want to ask colleagues to consider underlying things and giving us feedback so that we can take it back to the region. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I beg to reply. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. I would like to confirm that this motion does not affect the counties, so I'll put the question. I would now like to put a question that this House notes the report on the third statutory meeting of the Committee on Economic Development, Regional Integration, and Natural Resources of the Forum of Parliaments of the International Conference on the Great Lakes Region, FPICGLR, held in Bujumbura, Burundi from the 13th to 14th of March 2019, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 21st May 2019. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable Senators, with consultation with a number of the sponsors of some of the motions that appear in the order paper, I would like to defer the following orders: order number 10, order number 11, order number 12, order number 13, order number 14, order number 15, and order number 16. I would also like to defer order number 17 for the convenience of the House because of the composition of the movers. Next order.
Order number 18, the County Licensing Uniform Procedures Bill, Senate Bills number 17 of 2019, second reading.
Senator Mercy Jebeni.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 141-1, I beg to move that the County Licensing Uniform Procedures Bill, Senate Bill number 17, be now read a second time. Madam Speaker, the principal objective of this bill is to put in place uniform procedures for licensing of various activities by counties. Madam Speaker, one of the ways in which county governments generate revenue is through the issuance of licenses for activities related to the functions of county governments under Part 2 of the fourth schedule of the Constitution. One of the aspirations that informed the establishment of devolved units of government was to facilitate the proximate provision of public services. An attendant purpose of devolution was to also stimulate the uniform economic development of the different regions in the country. And Madam Speaker, a central feature of economic development is conducive environment for private sector actors. An environment that is conducive for businesses not only increases the tax base for government at both levels, but also has a positive impact on the creation of job opportunities and income-generating activities. Madam Speaker, it is therefore imperative to appreciate that the success of devolution is not just a question of public governance, but is also crucial for the intersectionality between public good and private enterprise. Madam Speaker, the benefits of adopting a system of devolved government cannot be gainsaid. The semi-autonomous units created under the Constitution have had a tremendous impact on the delivery of public services to the people. However, while the impact on ordinary lives is mostly laudable, there have been unintended consequences. And Madam Speaker, one of the areas in which this situation is glaring is in the licensing of trading activities by county governments. Madam Speaker, we have 47 county governments, and for me it has become apparent that there are varied procedures in applying for licenses, which means that we have 47 different procedures when it comes to licenses, which has had a negative impact on the ease of doing business in the counties. We have issues to do with timelines, issues to do with public participation, whether the stakeholders are involved, and issues which results to uncertainty and unpredictability of the environment. Therefore, Madam Speaker, this bill seeks to establish uniform procedures for licensing to ensure certainty in the process and ultimately encourage private sector players to do business in the counties. Allow me now to highlight some of the salient provisions of the bill, Madam Speaker. At the outset, the bill proposes to set out general duties for licensing authorities, which include providing for mechanisms for simultaneous applications for more than one license, which is in clause 4, preventing multiple licensing procedures, ensuring that applicants are given adequate opportunity to make representations on an application for a license, and adhering to timelines, Madam Speaker. One of the challenges which business people face, Madam Speaker, is a thing to do with timelines. Someone can apply for a business permit or a license, and they're not so sure when they're going to get their licenses, Madam Speaker, and this bill, therefore, seeks to establish adequate timelines for that. The bill provides for the duties of county governments in the exercise of the power to issue licenses, and these duties include the rights of protecting the rights of consumers in the respective counties, supporting the regulation of developing markets, ensuring that the quality of goods produced and services delivered is of a high standard, and effectively administering control over persons engaged in types of activities that may pose a risk to the general public. And lastly, Madam Speaker, to ensure that licensing fees imposed are not prohibitive. Sometimes, Madam Speaker, you find that we do not have public participation when it comes to fees imposed in terms of licensing. And therefore, Madam Speaker, this bill provides that public participation is established so that people can also comment on the licensing fees that will be imposed on them. Madam Speaker, the bill further provides for the applicable procedures in the process of licensing by county governments. These procedures include a requirement for county governments to put in place a single application process with respect to an application for more than one license. The county government is also required to make a determination on an application for a license within 20 days of the application. You see clearly, Madam Speaker, that this bill is curing the issues of timelines, and it stipulates that within 20 days of the application, a determination has to be made. In the absence of such determination, Madam Speaker, the application will be deemed to have been allowed. The bill provides that upon an application being made, the county government may grant a license and conditionally, subject to conditions authorized by the relevant licensing legislation, or refuse the application. In any event, the licensing authority will be required, in clause 15, to inform the applicant of the decision within 7 days, Madam Speaker. Further, licensing authorities are required to maintain a register of all licenses issued indicating the pertinent particulars of the license holder and the nature of the license. Madam Speaker, in clause 23, the bill strictly says that there is need to maintain a register for all the licenses issued. This will be able to allow us to understand what kind of businesses are undertaken in the county governments, and also to understand, to know who the license holder is and the nature of their licenses. The bill requires the holder of a license to provide the service or carry out the business specified in the license. Madam Speaker, you cannot then therefore have a license and provide a different kind of service or provide a different good which is different from what you had applied for, and to comply with all applicable laws and the conditions for issuance of the license, to provide for the licensing authority with information with respect to any change in its directorship or shareholding in accordance with Section 16. Madam Speaker, this speaks to the fact that sometimes people change the people who are directors in a business, and therefore it is up to them to inform the licensing authority of such a change, and also to pay such fees as may be prescribed, and to maintain where required, submit the licensing authority such information as may be necessary for the continued licensing of the license holder. Madam Speaker, the bill requires that a licensing authority be guided by principles. Of course, we cannot have a licensing authority without principles, Madam Speaker. And one of the principles is to ensure efficiency in the delivery of goods and services, accountability, public participation, which is stipulated in clause 10, and it is very well elaborated, Madam Speaker, and if you will allow me, it states that where a licensing authority intends to vary the conditions of fees payable for the issuance of a license, the licensing authority shall undertake a public participation and consult with the stakeholders likely to be affected at the formative stage of the proposal. This means, Madam Speaker, that they cannot just come up with guidelines on fees. They'll need to involve the relevant stakeholders and seek their views when it comes to such decisions. Madam Speaker, this bill also speaks to cross-subsidization where fees collected for providing a category of goods or services covers the cost incurred in providing goods and services in another category in accordance with existing legislation and adherence to existing policy on the charging and collection of fees and avoidance of multiple licensing in a specific sector. Madam Speaker, consequently, the bill seeks to create a uniform framework which shall form the basis of licensing processes in the counties. A uniform framework for licensing will guarantee certainty and predictability for business owners trading within the counties and is vital to the ease of doing business. A business environment underpinned by certainty and predictability will boost entrepreneurship, create employment opportunities, reduce the costs of business, and promote regular, reliable revenue streams for the county governments. I thank you. Madam Speaker, I beg to move and I request Senator Musuruve to second.
Thank you, Senator Musuruve.
Madam Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity to second this bill. And Madam Speaker, I would like to begin by commending Senator Chebeni for coming up with this noble bill. And Madam Speaker, this bill is going to speak to all the counties. As a Senate, you're supposed to defend the counties, protect their interests. And Madam Speaker, this bill will even ensure uniform development in counties, Madam Speaker. There are so many disparities when it comes to development across counties. And Madam Speaker, I want to also comment on the title. Madam Speaker, the sponsor of the bill, Senator Chebeni, I think maybe there's a need to just reconsider on the title. Maybe if we can talk about county, if we can have it as county standard licensing bill, so that we do not have the word uniform in parentheses. We can avoid that. Now, Madam Speaker, licensing is one of the main sources of county revenues. And I want to say, Madam Speaker, that it is very clear in the Constitution that counties are allowed to look for ways in which they can generate money. And some of the ways in which counties can generate money is through licenses. Madam Speaker, there are so many businesses that go on in the counties. And since there are very many businesses that go on in the counties, there is need to have a standard way of ensuring that if someone is starting a business, the person knows that there are certain rules that need to be followed so that there is a proper way of ensuring that businesses are not interrupted, and there are also the proper ways of ensuring that the environment is conducive, Madam Speaker. So I want to say that this bill is important because it is going to really bring sanity in the counties, in the manner in which businesses are conducted, Madam Speaker. And also, if this bill is really followed up to the latter and improved, it is going to ensure also, Madam Speaker, that all counties are developing at the same time, so the disparities are not so wide as in, for instance, if one county is very good in development, if the same procedures are followed, there's a possibility that, Madam Speaker, that all counties will develop at the same time. And also, Madam Speaker, all counties in this republic are actually given national funds so that they can develop the counties. So there's need to have a procedure that the county executives can speak to with regard to ensuring that business in their counties are doing well, and also business escalates. And even apart from escalating, Madam Speaker, if the counties are able to manage their licensing very well and get revenue, there's going to be even employment for youths, Madam Speaker. There are very many youths out there in the counties who are idle. They don't know what to do. They want to start businesses, but there are so many handbrakes, there are so many handicaps. So, Madam Speaker, this bill is going to be a boon for our counties. Now, Madam Speaker, I want to say that in terms of development and in terms of ensuring that counties are really doing what they are mandated to do, Madam Speaker, this bill can take counties very far. And Madam Speaker, it is in the counties that people are able to really express themselves. And as a Senate, we have to ensure that there is service delivery in the counties. Now, for service deliveries to be in the counties and proper service deliveries, we have to ensure that we are legislating, we are coming up with policies that will ensure that back in the counties, communities are able, and even youths are able to benefit, women are able to benefit, persons with disabilities are able to benefit. And Madam Speaker, allow me to say on the floor of this House that there's some businesses that run in some counties, and you just wonder how people got permits, Madam Speaker. Let me give an example of some people running, clinics. Madam Speaker, it has been in the newspaper at one point that there are some doctors who even take advantage of their patients when they're, in anesthesia. They're not themselves, they're not conscious, and there are some doctors who have even raped their patients. This incident happened at Githurai. It was in the paper. The doctor was followed up to Limuru. And Madam Speaker, if standard procedures are followed, some of these doctors, some of these quacks can be eliminated because, Madam Speaker, they have to follow the right procedures. Madam Speaker, another example of insanity with regard to business I want to speak on is also on the issue of even euthanasia, where you find that in a situation where a patient is really sick and is not able to pull through to a second day, there's some doctors, Madam Speaker, who practice euthanasia, and this is very wrong because every patient can make a miracle. Every patient has a right to live until the last time when God calls the patient. There are some doctors actually who do this. And it is wrong, Madam Speaker, because sometimes when you follow these doctors, they are not medical doctors. Some of them are just quacks, but they have open clinics. So they have no ethics to comply to. They're not even bothered, even in terms of their conscience. And Madam Speaker, I want to talk about also an incident of some schools I used to hear about when I was growing up. Madam Speaker, there are some schools that were even erected on top of a bar. Madam Speaker, at some point in time, some years back, I remember there was a school called St. Mary's Secondary. It was on top of a bar. In some places, you'll find people starting businesses, even schools, in such areas, in environments that are not conducive, Madam Speaker, and still they brave through. Madam Speaker, there's need to bring sanity in this country so that if someone wants to begin a school, there should be a standard way of starting a school. There should be the regulations with regard to starting a school. Madam Speaker, there are even people who have started a school without a playing field. And Madam Speaker, we all know that you know, when it comes to work, without any recreation, the person becomes dull, the person will not be innovative. So there's need, Madam Speaker, to ensure that all counties comply to a standard way of coming up with business. And Madam Speaker, even when you're talking about business, there's need for all counties to come up with an agreement in terms of, you know, a standard way of coming up with a school, a standard way of even coming up with a butchery. And Madam Speaker, before I forget, there are even some people who come up with a butchery. But sometimes, Madam Speaker, the things they sell in the butchery will shock you. There are some people who have even sold donkey meat. There are even some people who have sold even human meat. But Madam Speaker, if there's a standard way that if you're starting a butchery, this is how it should be. If it's meat, this is the recommended type, and it's followed to the letter. It will reduce some of these ugly incidents, Madam Speaker. So I want to say, Madam Speaker, when it comes to licensing, let the licensing be standard so that anybody wanting to start a business can even Google and see, if I want to start a business for a school, these are the requirements, and the requirements should be across all the counties. So that if someone has just 1/8 of an acre and wants to start a school, that person should not be allowed to start a school, Madam Speaker. Because in some counties, you'll even find, and it is painful, Madam Speaker, there are some even schools, as you're speaking, that even become boarding schools without even the proper facilities, without even, you know, mechanisms of ensuring that there are right boarding facilities for children, the environment is conducive, and all that. And Madam Speaker, even in some schools, children are abused because why? Because even the person who got the license got it in a very, you know, weird manner. The person did not even follow the procedures. There are not any standards. So the person has no guilt at all. And even in some schools, Madam Speaker, we even find that sometimes teachers are not ethical. In some schools, children are abused. But in a situation where there's a standard way of coming up with you know, a business, and then after coming up with a business, there are also repercussions for those who flout the standards. And those who are also unethical, they should be held into account, Madam Speaker. Because if they're not held into account, in as much as we want counties to prosper, in as much as we want business, you know, the counties to have their own revenue, the revenue will not come out clean. Madam Speaker, we have to ensure that we are coming up with a legal framework that will ensure that in the counties, we have a standard way of doing things. And even when you're talking of the, you know, standard way, let it be across the board. So that, Madam Speaker, someone who is in Somali, someone who is in Uasin Gishu, someone who is in Meru, someone who is in Kakamega, can actually Google and see these are the things that are required in case I want to come up with a business. And I want to say, Madam Speaker, sometimes even the registrars that who are actually supposed to license are corruptible in such a way that sometimes even people go to them, they talk to them, they bribe them, and they're given licenses. So when they're given licenses out of corruption, they will not even adhere to any standard. But in a situation where all the standard, the right you know, format has been followed, then they'll have a conscience to guide them. So I want to say, Madam Speaker, even when it comes to licensing, there should be a time frame, Madam Speaker, because sometimes people ask for licenses, but when they ask for licenses, they do not come in handily. Sometimes you'll find, I remember a case of someone who was talking about the father who had started a college. Madam Speaker, her father kept going, asking for the license, asking for the license. The license was not even given until eventually he found himself in the wrong books because he had started a college without a license. So there's need also for a time frame so that if someone has applied for a license, according to this bill, it needs to take the shortest time possible to ensure that the license has been obtained. And if the license has not been obtained within the time that is required with this bill, then it should just be assumed, Madam Speaker, that the person has a license. This, Madam Speaker, we will actually help you know, business owners in counties to run their business in a safe environment, to run their business in you know, in a conducive environment, because, Madam Speaker, When businesses thrive in the counties, it is usually a situation that is a plus to the counties because the youth will be employed. Madam Speaker, there are some youths in the counties out there who are so idle. They would want to do something, they would want to even run a business, but then the atmosphere is not conducive. Sometimes they go to the office, they find the officer is not even there who is supposed to give the license. Sometimes they find the procedures, when an officer says that bring this, when the person goes now to bring this, the goalpost moves to the next and to the next level. Madam Speaker, that is very discouraging. So I want to say, Madam Speaker, that this bill of Senator Chebeni will bring sanity into the counties and will ensure that even licenses take the shortest time to be obtained. And Madam Speaker, this bill also talks about protecting consumers. That is protecting consumers. Like for instance, Madam Speaker, there's an instance, in fact, there are many instances that have happened in the media where I've seen, sometimes media highlights that people have eaten expired goods. Where on earth, Madam Speaker, would someone sit down and decide that these goods are expired, this food is expired, and decide now to just sell them to people? Madam Speaker, it is unthinkable, it is painful, it is unethical, it is uncouth, and it is not well-meaning. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say that this bill protects also consumers, so that whatever you get as a consumer, you clearly know that whoever has given you the goods, whoever has given you the food, is someone who is well-meaning, is someone who wants you to be healthy, not someone who wants you to be in the grave. Madam Speaker, there are some people also who have bought food and eventually they've started diarrheaing. Madam Speaker, in some eateries, I want to tell you, there are some eateries where you find people have licenses, yes, but the hygiene is below par. It should never happen in a country where we are concerned about our own people. So, Madam Speaker, this bill will bring sanity to those entrepreneurs who do not even think about the other people, who are not keen, who are egocentric, because they want money, and because of the love of money, they just decide that they're going to start an eatery, there is no toilet even, Madam Speaker, and the food is not palatable, the food is poisoned, and eventually people eat. So I want to say, Madam Speaker, that it is important, this bill is important because it will ensure that there's sanity in the businesses that are going on. It will ensure that the consumer is protected. And even when the consumer is being protected, Madam Speaker, I would like also Senator Chebeni to also include a clause where in a situation where an entrepreneur sells goods that have expired, then the entrepreneur should be held into account. In a situation where a butcher is found to have sold donkey meat, then the butcher needs to be held into account. In a situation where even a butcher, and Madam Speaker, there's even a situation where a butcher even sold, a butchery was even selling cat meat. Madam Speaker, it happened.
Honorable Senators, I'm interrupting so that I invoke standing order that 1, 2, to extend the sitting by 3 minutes after 6:30, so that to enable the member finish her 2 minutes after 6:30, and I will use the last 1 minute to propose, then the debate ensures when we return, when we resume the House. Thank you. So you have your 3 minutes, so the sitting will extend by 3 minutes. 2 minutes for you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was talking about a situation, Madam Speaker, that was strange. In a place, I think, I'm not sure whether it was Nakuru or where, but it's very clear in my memory that there is a butchery where even the butchers were selling cat meat. And it is very unethical. It is very inhuman. So I want to say, Madam Speaker, this bill is speaking to a situation of bringing sanity to entrepreneurs. It is a bill that is seeking to ensure that county governments are productive in terms of collecting revenues, and apart from collecting revenues, the environment is conducive, and apart from being conducive, there is a lot of entrepreneurship going on, and also creation of employment for the youths, creation of employment for for women. And also, Madam Speaker, I would like also Senator Chebeni to include something on creating an opportunity for PWDs in the counties, Madam Speaker, because many times people forget the issue of disability. So they need also for a conducive environment in the counties for the license. In fact, Madam Speaker, PWDs should even have, when they want licenses for businesses, let the money that is meant for licenses be even half of what the others are paying, so that we also encourage PWDs to also have businesses, and apart from having businesses, acre living. Because, Madam Speaker, I want to tell you for truth, there are some PWDs who don't do a business, but they do not have money for license. So I want to say that in all the counties, if the county executives also ensured that PWDs are factored in, we will have counties that are sensitive, we'll have counties that are reliable, we'll have counties that are, regular in the ways in which they're helping all the persons.
Thank you, Senator. Honorable Senators, I will now propose the question that the County Licensing Uniform Procedure Bill, Senate Bills number 17 of 2019, be now read a second time. Honorable Senators, it is now time to adjourn the House. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 26th November 2019 at 2:30 p.m.